Good evening, everyone. The meeting will come to order. Right. Okay. Papers together. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please read the adequate notice of compliance statement?
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the City Clerk's office in the preparation of the council annual meeting notice dated December 30th, 2021, which was properly distributed and posted per statutory requirements. Please be advised the fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room. The city has a listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs hearing assistance, please obtain the system at the dais and return it thereafter.
Okay, could we have a roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Ms. Allen?
Here.
Ms. Hairston?
Here.
Ms. Little?
Here.
Mr. Miniger?
Here.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Vartan?
Present.
President Fox.
Here. Okay, if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Madam Clerk, could you please read the notices regarding closed sessions and hearings and comments?
A closed session meeting is authorized by state statute, was announced and held prior to the start of this meeting, and the known items for discussion were listed on the published closed session agenda. Please be advised that council meetings are broadcast live on Summit YouTube channel and Comcast channel 36 and Verizon channel 30, and rebroadcast on Thursdays and Saturdays on HTTV, Comcast 36, and Verizon 33. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and address, spell your last name, and speak into the podium microphone so that your comments can be understood by all and properly recorded. Whenever an audience or council member reads from a prepared statement, please give or email a copy to the City Clerk's office at cityclerk@cityofsummit.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to approximately 3 minutes or so in length. Unless you are using an electronic device to follow the meeting agenda or need it for professional emergency contact purposes, please turn it off. Thank you.
Thank you. Now moving on to approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the regular and closed session minutes of May 17th?
So moved. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And you okay? All right. We're moving on to reports now. Madam Mayor?
Thank you very much, Council President. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many people here. To help inform decision-making about a potential permanent street closure, Summit Downtown, Inc. is hosting an online survey on the temporary Maple Street outdoor pedestrian mall. The current one is temporary, and they would like to hear from you. Please take a few minutes to fill out the survey at summitdowntown.org. And it's been emailed to many residents and all the merchants and all the owners in town. Thank you to the Department of Community Programs, American Legion Lindsay Street Branch, Summit Elks, Summit PAL, and everyone who participated in the Memorial Day Parade and ceremony on the Village Green. It was an honor to participate in the event and to recognize and remember those who gave their lives so we can live ours in freedom. It was also the 5th anniversary of the death of Detective Matthew Tarantino, who contributes so much to our lives as our colleague and friend, and to our community as a police officer. The Summit Police Department's 8th annual food drive is ongoing through Friday, June 3rd. The department is collecting canned food items and non-perishable goods to donate to Loaves and Fishes of St. Teresa's Church. There is a drop-off location outside Council Chamber in the Police Department lobby. Information on additional drop-off locations is available on the city website at cityofsummit.org. Thank you.
Thank you. And now on to the City Administrator for his report. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening. Just 2 items. The summer hour schedule for city offices is effective now through Friday, September 2nd. City offices will open for business at 8 a.m. and close at 4:30 p.m., Monday through Thursday. And then on Fridays, offices will open at 8 a.m. and close at 1 p.m. The construction office in the Department of Community Services will operate under a modified summer schedule. The office will be open Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and on Fridays from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then the second item, beginning today and for the next 6 months, Summit residents can bring household food waste to the municipal transfer station as a part of a trial food composting program. If the program is successful, it may continue. A list of acceptable items is available on the City of Summit at cityofsummit.org. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Just before I start the council president's report, if anyone wants a chair, there should be some chairs out in the lobby to the left. You can grab one and bring it in. As we try to process the unthinkable yet again, it's clearer than ever that we're facing a public health crisis of gun violence fueled by racism, bigotry, and hatred. Our condolences are with the families and friends of those killed or injured in the recent horrific shootings in Uvalde, Texas, Dayton, Ohio, Laguna Woods, California, Buffalo, New York, and I understand today, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And with all Americans affected every day by hateful rhetoric and gun violence. Urging our elected officials to act on sensible gun control laws is essential, but what we're doing locally is also very important. Working to increase tolerance and respect and promoting diversity in our government, city programs, and among volunteer groups continues as a focus of our mayor and council. No matter where you come from or what you believe, you belong here in Summit. I continue to be thankful for the productive and proactive relationship that the Summit Police Department has with the public and private schools here in Summit, and the informed decisions they make each day to keep our schools secure and our community safe. Now for some general announcements. I wanted to provide an update on Broad Street West. Council had planned to vote on this project in May, but over the past 4 months, the mayor, council, and city staff and professionals have been meeting with residents, reading voluminous emails from residents, and listening to many, many comments from members of the community at council meetings and at other meetings as well. We've heard your concerns, and we've been working with the redevelopers to address them. We will be presenting revisions that will address some concerns about the scale and design of the building, and will include a reduction in the number of units being built, as well as an increase in the number of parking spaces. We are now ready to present a revised plan that we believe is consistent with the master plan and addresses the community's needs. So I'm just briefly going to talk about the procedure. More details will follow on the city's website, and as we get more details, we will provide them to you. But in the interest of getting you as much information as we can, as soon as we can, here it is. So council will be holding a special meeting on Tuesday, June 21st. And at that meeting, we will present the amended plans, and we will introduce an ordinance to amend the redevelopment plan to conform to the project. The redevelopment plan amendments will be referred to the planning board after that meeting to make a consistency determination on the consistency of the redevelopment plan with the master plan. And that meeting will be on June 27th. That's the regularly scheduled planning board meeting. After that, council will hold a public hearing on the redevelopment plan amendments on July 19th. Community members will have the opportunity to ask their questions and comment on the plan amendment at that meeting. We'll also have our professionals there to answer your questions. We'll be providing more information on the schedule as it becomes available. And then just a couple of business matters. The annual Summit Has Pride event will be taking place this Saturday, June 4th on the Green, beginning at 6 p.m. This is a free event open to members of the public, and a schedule of performances and information on activities and concessions is available at summitcommunityprograms.com. The Summit Free Market is back on Saturday, June 11th at the transfer station at 40 New Providence Avenue. Stop by any time between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. to drop off yard sale quality items and browse donated items, all for free. Visit summitfreemarket.org for more information. And then finally, Tuesday, June 7th is the primary election. Information on early voting, where to vote, and more is available on the city website at thecityofsummit.org or at the Union County Clerk's website, which is ucnj.org. So with that, we will move on to public comment period. So at this point in the meeting, we will accept comments from members of the public about issues that are not topics on tonight's business agenda. Whenever an audience member reads from a prepared statement, please provide it to the clerk either if you have a paper copy, or you could also email it to her at cityclerk@cityofsummit.org. And I'm going to ask everyone, we've got a lot of people in the room tonight, so please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please respect that rule just because everyone here is waiting patiently for their turn. And if people can try also to not repeat the comments that others have made, it's okay to say, I agree with so-and-so, or I agree with this issue, but try to keep it, keep this efficient for the purposes of getting us all out of here before midnight. So with that, I'll take the first comment, so come on up, and please state your name and address.
Hi, good evening, Council, Mayor, thank you.
Good
I'm
evening.
Amy DeCibio, DISIBIO, at 1 Essex Road. I want to talk a little bit tonight about the community pushback on this project, and I'm glad to hear that there will be some changes. President Fox, I hope that they are actually meaningful changes, ones that comply. I know you've received many emails about the project, seen many letters to the editor, you've seen the almost 1,100 petition signers. You've heard people at your own town hall and the town hall meeting that was hosted by Residents for Summit. You've seen flyers and social media posts. You've heard us at these council meetings, and again, thank you for the private meetings that you referred to. You've been generous with your time on those. But I would say that the feedback for you guys has been overwhelmingly negative about this project. The two reasons you've cited for putting it through are affordable housing, putting it through as is, or affordable housing and financials. The two main reasons. And Summit has been good on affordable housing so far. It's so good that we don't have a mandate to put in affordable housing. We have an agreement to continue with the state to build more affordable housing, and I'm proud of the fact that we have that. And frankly, we are building things now, and for all I care, this whole project could be affordable housing as long as the building complies with the zoning. So I'm not really understanding that argument. Secondly are the financials. We've been told that we are in sort of financial straits and we really need to do this. But if that's the case, then I think you signaled to the community quite the opposite when you gave us a tax cut in the fall right before the election. I would say that would be irregular and not right. I would also say that building this fire station that costs a lot of money at this time could have waited. We've kicked this project down the road many times, and I think it could have been kicked down a little further and maybe done a few more Band-Aids if we're really in such financial trouble. You guys appoint qualified people to sit on committees in this town, whether it's zoning, planning, the master plan committee, the redevelopment plan committee, and the steering committee for this project. And they put in a lot of time and a lot of effort, and those committees create the things that this council and mayor should uphold and use as the standard. You're the protectors of that. But who's going to want to serve on these committees now if you're going to just redline it and put through amendments that aren't really right? I think you should stick to the plan as they are. That's why they were set up. So I hope that some of you on this council will be brave and stand up. This should not be a partisan issue. This is not a political issue. This shouldn't be a political and partisan council. Somebody needs to stand up and be brave and do what's right for Summit. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Bennett.
Good evening, Madam Council President. Good evening, members of council, Mayor Radist. I'm Jim Bennett, 38 Fairview Avenue. That's Bennett. No business would dream of producing an income and expense statement that leaves off expenses. Yet, that's what the city has done with Broad Street West. The Powell presentation on April 5th, 2022 addressed only revenue. As we know, Broad Street West is not a rateable and will impact municipal school and school district costs. Mr. Rogers explained that while there are various methodologies for predicting municipal service costs, they typically are not very accurate. Accuracy concerns, however, do not justify inaction. Typically, municipalities conduct a fiscal impact analysis when considering new land use. I understand from Mr. McGoey that most commonly used methodology is the per capita cost allocation method. Under this methodology, one divides the total annual municipal cost by the population and multiplies the result by the number of estimated new residents in a development. For education costs, divide the school system budget by the total enrollment and multiply the result by the estimated number of new public school students. The results may seem high for marginal purposes, but assuming excess capacity is imprudent. Starting with municipal costs, the total financial budget from page 2 of the 2022 municipal budget snapshot totals $64,227,162. Dividing that number by the estimated July 1, 2021 population of Summit, 22,526 according to the U.S. Census Bureau, results in a per capita amount of $2,851. The new residents that Broad Street West will add is 231, calculated according to a table I've presented to the city clerk. Under the per capita cost calculation, Broad Street West's additional demand for municipal services becomes $658,638. The education cost analysis begins with only the tax-financed portion of the school budget of $69,767,778 from the BOE notice of a March 28, 2022 meeting. Dividing that number by the gross enrollment of 3,906 students results in a per capita amount of $17,862. Taking your figure of 24 additional students from the school system, which for reasons I previously indicated I think is low, the additional annual demand for educational services that Broad Street West generates is $428,621. Ring those two items up, and the annual cost to the city from this new development becomes $1,087,318. At the March 1st, 2022 council meeting, Dr. Powell estimated that the project's pilot would bring in an average of $600,000 per year, of which $100,000 would repay the redevelopment area bond. Therefore, even if the project brought in $800,000 per year and we disregarded the RAB, the city would still be in a deficit position from Broad Street West. The one-time $8 million sales proceeds from the land do not compensate the recurring loss. From a financial viewpoint, we would be better off raising the old fire headquarters and planting grass, or maybe a pocket park, and returning the Cedar Street office building to the private sector, putting it back on the tax rolls as a rateable. I'm not suggesting we do that, but if the L&M Toll Brothers proposal is a financial loser for the city, it may be prudent to consider scaling back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Hello. Good evening, Council and Mayor Radist. My name is Natalia Christensen Landers. I live at 80 Whitridge Road here in town. I will not repeat or go over comments that were previously shared, all of which I agree with, but I wanted to get up and say I personally oppose the Broad Street West redevelopment plan in its current format. I grew up in Summit. I lived here my whole life, minus a short stint in New York City after college. I moved back here to Summit, New Jersey to live in the town as it was, the way that I grew up in it. If I wanted to move to a town like Morristown or South Orange that had, the density that I believe this project will bring to the town, we would have. I think that this is arguably one of the most consequential projects to face council, and has the opportunity to completely and irreversibly change the character of our town, which causes me great concern. And I appreciate that you're taking the time to reevaluate the current plans and to listen to the concerns of citizens like myself and others here tonight. And I urge you to continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Linda Wamsley, Wamsley, at 17 Mealy Place. I've been a lifelong resident of Summit also. I run a business here in town. Very proud to call Summit my home. I see a lot of inconsistencies. I believe there was always a cutoff that we would not have buildings larger than 3 stories in downtown. I don't remember ever seeing a 5-story building.
The Bassett Building.
When did?
1930s.
Well,
There's on Summit on Euclid Avenue, there are two apartments that are 6 feet, 6 and 7 stories.
okay.
I think she should be allowed to finish.
You're right, and I apologize.
Go ahead. I had the unique experience of having 3 kids at 3 different schools. At the same time, the Morris Avenue Bridge was closed, like a lunatic driving around every morning. I don't understand how adding 200 to 300 more cars in the middle of town is going to make our quality of life any better. I think there could be a better use for that space. I don't understand why such a large building is going in Summit. It doesn't fit with anything else that I see there. The parking garage. As a woman, I refuse to park in a parking garage because I don't feel safe. So putting another dark, menacing parking garage in the middle of our beautiful town, just everything. Chris Anderson is very careful about the way things look when a building is complete. And I think when it's all said and done, everything always looks beautiful. Putting a large parking garage in the middle of town that's not in walking distance to anything is for what? I mean, are you going to park there and go shopping? What is the parking for? Just the apartments? And while we're talking, the Maple Street project and closing Maple Street is great, except all the stores close at 5 o'clock. And they complain that the mall is taking their business, but the mall's open till 9. If we're going to close the streets, then let the stores stay open. Get somebody to stay open, because you go out for dinner and then there's nothing. There's nothing to do. So these are my observations. I am against this monstrosity in the middle of town. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Mary Farrell. I live at 117 Beekman Road. Thank you, Madam President, Mayor, and Council. I had a list of questions that I did not get to ask the Mayor when I met with her a week ago. I won't ask all 10 questions, but I'll hit on some of the important ones. The first speaker hit on 3 of the major issues: the pilot, affordable housing, and another question I have. As far as the pilot program, my question is, does the town have a projected 5-year budget that you can share with the residents that justifies implementing a pilot program? I don't see what the big revenue drive is here. There must be some drop-off in tax revenue or something. So if we can justify it, it just would answer more questions. Secondly, I'll just read this as it is. On the City of Summit website, Mayor Addis has an open letter describing the project and reasoning behind some of the decisions that have been made. Currently, the city collects $30,000 from Subdistrict 3, which is a total of $6,000 going to the municipality. Part of that is that it's city-owned property, so there's no taxable revenue there. My question is, if we were to sell off Subdistrict 3 to a private developer, and not use the pilot program, what would be the tax revenue based on 72 apartments and the retail on the bottom. So we could see what the need is, what the revenue is coming in. I think that's a fair question. Lastly, the mayor had also said that for the quota for affordable housing, we need 50 units, and that this project, as it stands now, will be 21 units. My question to you is, there is a lot of other current building going on in town. Just in my very unofficial survey, there's the Italian American Hall, there's the building going behind the monastery, the condos on Springfield Avenue, Summit Crossing, Sunrise Assisted Living. All of those have affordable housing units in that already. And my question is, what is the penalty if we fall short of that 50 units? Is there a penalty from the state? And what if we get to 40? What's the difference? And then the last question is, I had spoken, when I had my conversation with the mayor, I had said that I didn't think Toll Brothers was a viable construction company, and the reasoning is, I would like to know what the status is, if anybody here on council knows the status of pending litigation that the company has with a number of units, projects that they completed. There were $1.5 million units that are uninhabitable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Bruce Chambeau, Chambeau. We reside at 113 Witch Ridge Road, Summit, New Jersey. We want to thank you for all your volunteerism. The town of Summit appreciates that quality here. I'm asking the council to scale back this project. I walked over the other day to the actual site, and I was trying to imagine looking up 2 stories, 3 stories, 4 stories, 5 stories. Then I tried to imagine, what about the 200 cars that are going to be here every day? And then I'm trying to imagine 300, 400 people on this little pot of land. And I just think that it's way oversized. I do want to add that Milburn is presently erecting apartments, rental apartments, 1.5 miles from here for 270 rental units. Springfield, also 1.5 miles from the site, is erecting 140 rental units. And we're going to add to it at least another 140 rental units. So I just want to bring this to everyone's attention. I would hope the council would reconsider and stand up for this town. Once it's in place, it'll be there forever. This is in the heart of town. This isn't on the outskirts. This is the lifeblood of this town.
Hi, Sue
Good evening.
Roberts, 48 Oakland Place. I just wanted to comment, I agree with everything that's been said here, and I know that I've been up here a few times saying that I think the building is too large, too dense. But I want to make one comment about the Bassett Building, because that's come up repeatedly. And after looking into that, the Bassett Building, yes, is 5 stories tall. However, it's only 56 feet tall, which is 10 feet less than the current proposed building at BSW. Also, the Bassett Building is only 105 feet long. This project that we're talking about is 480 feet long. So I ask that everyone stop please comparing it to the Bassett Building. It's not even close. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guy Hazelman, 21 Ruthven Place. I've never been more proud of my fellow residents here, and let me tell you, I lived in this town and love it, and I'm usually very proud of my residents, so I think I agree with everything they said, and it was well said, but I just want to make one point that concerns me, and that is when you kind of gave the calendar and you talked about how you're already scheduled to vote on this, if I'm not mistaken. Am I allowed to ask you a question, Council President, about July 19th?
July 19th is going to be a hearing and vote on the redevelopment plan amendments.
Okay, and we heard earlier that we hope that it is material, and I would agree that I hope it is material, meaning the new structure. And July 19th is a little tough to have votes like that. And I remember that about 15 years ago when they scheduled a vote for parking downtown. I don't know if it was the gates or they were going to, and the town got very upset over having a vote when most people are away for the summer. And eventually that did get delayed until September. And the other thing we heard here tonight is this is one of the most consequential decisions for the character of our town, certainly than I can remember, and I've been here my whole life. So with that, I don't know if any votes should take place over the summer. If it's that consequential, I would hope that we could push it to September when people are back. That's a request. I hope you'd consider it. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Tom Janis. I live at 40 Plymouth Road in Summit. My grandparents moved to Summit over 100 years ago, and we have absolutely loved living in this town. Born in the town, work in the town, live in the town. The only other time I've ever spoken before you was 30 years ago when we spoke about building the city hall in the middle of the village green. And a number of us who had grown up in town, I think Gil Orrin spoke also, Steve Schroeder, myself, and we absolutely discouraged putting this monster city hall in the middle of the village green. And the Common Council at that time listened to us. They initially were very strongly in favor of putting it there and heard the community. And the only reason I'm even speaking now is I want you to listen to our community. The Common Council listened to the citizens of the town 30 years ago. Fortunately, we don't have the village green with a large parking lot and a big building in the middle of it, which would be a complete disaster. I hope you don't do the same thing now. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Robert Rubino, 84 Prospect Hill Avenue, former councilman and council president. Council members, mayor, thank you for all the work you've done. I know it's a lot of hours put into all the work you do on council, but big projects like this. To the gentleman who just spoke about listening to the concerns of the citizens and everybody who comes forth on this project, about 7 years ago, when I was sitting in your seat, Councilwoman Fox, we had a parking deck project that was kind of handled in a similar way, lots of community meetings. A lot of folks came to us saying we need more parking downtown, and the idea of putting up a parking deck on one of the lots on DeForest came to a vote. And there was a lot of back and forth, but the community had asked for parking, but the community had also asked to pay attention to the integrity of the downtown and what that might do. And when it came to it, to a vote, which is probably around this time, as council president, I did just what that gentleman said. And I listened to the citizens of Summit, and the other council members were in agreement to pull the plan for that parking deck. And I think the difference here is this project, I don't recall there being a large outcry for a development of a large multifamily unit in the downtown. And while I think that area does need to be improved, so I think the spirit's right, when I look at the size and the scope and the demands this will put on not only the residents, but the infrastructure of the town and the traffic, I think it's too big and too much and not Summit enough. So I would ask that there may be more deliberation on this, on the size and the scope, and maybe take more input and I know this has been done well as far as getting community feedback and things like that, but my mom used to say measure twice and cut once, and I think here we measure 3 or 4 times and cut once, because I think the project's that important and in my view probably too big in scale and scope. So I thank you for your consideration. Again, thank you for all the work you guys do out there in council.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Armando Rodriguez, R-O-D-R-I-G-U-E-Z. I am a resident of Summit for 33 years, 27 Harvey Drive. Just want to say my piece, if you will. Thank you for allowing me to come up here. The one question I have for you all is why? Why are we doing this? Why is it that we need more pollution, more cars on the road, a bottleneck in that area, if you will? Additional sewer. I'm sure we're going to be paying additional monies for sewer service. Water use. Garbage. That's already a problem. So although I agree with everything that has been said, I'd like to add that really let's think about why do we want to change the character of the town. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Allison Chifo, 34 Laurel Avenue. On May 3rd, I spoke in front of this council asking when we would have a city town hall that you would host and let us speak. More than the 3 minutes that has been allowed. President Fox, you said that we're waiting for some information back from the developer. You promised that it would not be held during July or August. I mentioned that the summer is coming. Summer has a different definition for everybody. The city of Summit last week on their posted that summer hours are now here. So according to the city, summer already started. Your summer hours started this past week. So in your view, summer is here. Summer is not a time to have any sort of vote. You promised that we would have this council meeting, this town hall meeting, and I just want to know do you have an answer for us for when the council meeting will be held? The town hall meeting will be held?
I've answered that I don't know if you were here at the beginning of the meeting, but I talked about the schedule. So the presentation on the project will be on the 21st of June.
So close, okay, so after school, my kids are not in school anymore. That's after the schools close in some of them.
You know what, we'll address all this at the end, but I did go over the schedule. Make your comments, and then at the end, I will talk about everything.
So I just want, so there is a town hall meeting scheduled?
It's a special council meeting. It is not a town hall, and we will have it on the 21st of June.
So there's going to be room for public comment?
Actually, not at that meeting. That will be... There's a public comment period, but not on that topic. We'll have a presentation and then an opportunity to ask comments later at the next meeting.
And when will that meeting be? The last time, when I was here, you said that you were waiting for information back from the developer, and you couldn't put it, it's not on the schedule yet. You promised it wasn't July or August. It's June. We have a couple more weeks left of June. So is this meeting going to be scheduled, the town hall meeting going to be scheduled in September?
No, it was going to be scheduled. I went through the schedule. We have taken comments from the public. We've incorporated those comments. We've spent the last 4 months back and forth with the public, hearing comments from the residents and incorporating those. So this is not like something we've sprung on you.
You promised us a town hall meeting.
I never
okay?
promised that.
You promised us a town hall meeting.
Okay,
You promised
you know what? I'm not getting into back and forth. Make your comments. We'll go, and I will.
Just for the record, you promised a town hall meeting. Everybody else agrees, and you have fallen back on your promise. Okay? You said not July, not August, and now you're sitting there. Now we're not going to have one at all. Just for the record, you promised, and you're breaking your promise.
It's on YouTube.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Schwartstein. I live at 44 Lowell Avenue. My last name is Schwartzein. I also want to thank all the council members for your time and dedication to the city. I know it's a lot of time away from your families and your lives, and I do really appreciate it. I have lived in Summit for almost 16 years. I'm proud to be a Summit resident. I served on the zoning board for 4 years, so I'm familiar with a lot of the issues in the city. I echo a lot of what I've heard here tonight. I think that the scale of this is just way out of proportion. I have 3 children in the Summit Public Schools. I will echo what I've heard here. Traffic is a major problem. I also have a business in Summit, and it's off of River Road, and traffic is a major problem. A very well-spoken gentleman here tonight mentioned several other developments going on in other cities. I am not as educated on all of those, but I do know that there's also a development going on in Chatham, and that seems like it's going to feed right onto River Road and right into our traffic patterns as well. I would urge you to reconsider this project for a lot of different reasons. The influx of people to the schools, the traffic, the sewer problems. I don't know if you're aware, but if there's a heavy rain on West End Avenue, their sewer backs up. Not the water going into other things. Sewers backing up into people's houses. We're dealing with sewer systems that are 100 years old, and I do think these are things you need to consider when you're trying to have a project of this scale. And I also just wanted to mention, and I haven't been at every meeting, so I don't know what communications are being sent to the city, but I do have older neighbors that had mentioned they had heard about this project, but they aren't on social media or Facebook, and I just wonder whether or not enough communication has been going on out in print or mailings to make the general public aware of this, because not everyone is as keyed in to what's going on in the city. And I would say that school is officially over on June 13th. I think some graduations are going on June 14th. So if you are having a very special meeting on the 21st, I'm sure there will be a lot of people out of town. And I would urge you to reconsider scheduling that, just so that if there are citizens who want to participate, that they're able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Don Nelson, 20 Plain Street.
Good evening.
One thing that caught me off guard tonight was when we talked about there's going to be a change of the plan for the building, and then we were going to change the development plan to meet the new design. Did I catch that right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can make plans, we can develop a building, then change the plans to meet the building. I can't do that when I develop my own property. So I don't understand how I don't understand how that would work. We had a committee that went through a long process to come up with what we have now. For some reason, we went beyond that. So now we're going to change the plan to meet that or meet something in between. I don't get how that works, at least in my world. I'm a pretty simple guy. So if you could address that. And additionally, I agree with what everyone said about, summer's here, school's getting out, colleges, kids are graduating from college, people are going away. I know people's lives shouldn't get in the way of business, but it does. So it would wholeheartedly benefit you all to wait till the fall, to have the meeting, have a town hall meeting. I think, you talked about including people and everything. That's a perfect way to do it. Wait till September, have a town hall meeting, get everybody on board, include it, have it at the high school, in the auditorium, in the gym, have it at the junior high. Get everybody there, invite as many people as you can, get consensus about what wants to be done. I know we did that years ago, but a lot of time has passed and people have forgotten, and now we have this 5-story monstrosity that's going to be in the center of town. In my opinion, not a good idea. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Irene Loschert. I'm at 14 Lenox Road. And as you know, I've been coming to these meetings for months, speaking out against this project. The room keeps getting fuller every time you have a meeting. I'm wondering, are there people who come and tell you that they really want this project the way that it is? If they don't come here, I haven't met anybody in town who likes this project. My question is, where do you get your information?
Hi. My name is Liz Barrett, Barrett, and I live at 189 Kent Place Boulevard. I grew up in Summit, as did both my parents, and I'm raising my 3 kids here. So like you all, I care about Summit, and I want to thank you, as others have, for all the time that you spend working on behalf of Summit. I want to see this council succeed. I voted for most of you. I support most of what you do. I do not support the current Broad Street West plan. I have not heard any of you make a compelling case for this version of the plan. What is the sales pitch for Summit? Why is a 5-story building, a building that's longer than 1.5 football fields, why is that what Summit needs on this central piece of land that's so close to the middle school and already clogged with so much dangerous traffic? Anecdotally, as was just said, I haven't met a single person who likes this version of the plan. What is the case for this hulking, visually overwhelming building? While you see the same faces at council meetings speaking out against this plan, and you may see the same familiar names hashing it out on Facebook, the fact is that well over 1,000 Summit residents have signed a petition registering their opposition to this version of the plan. And I am sure that number would be even bigger, much bigger, if more residents actually knew about it. There are many, many who don't. Summit doesn't like this version of the plan because it's not right for Summit. Please do not rush forward with this version of the building and make this your legacy. It would be a colossal and permanent mistake.
Hi, Charlie Cusimano, 22 Bedford Road, Cusumano. I agree with everything everybody has said here. And the one thing that has struck me along this whole process is that there's nobody really selling this. So she said, where's the sales pitch? I work in advertising. Does anybody remember New Coke, 1985? This feels like New Coke. It just feels like a disaster waiting to happen, and you don't see it for some reason. It's too big, there's not enough parking, and I applaud all your efforts and hard work, and I hope that this new plan addresses a lot of those things. But I just don't, nobody's selling it. Who's selling it? There's nobody out there going, wow, this is going to be great. It's going to rejuvenate the town. It's going to do all these things. It's going to do A, B, C, or D. I don't see anybody doing that.
That speaks volumes to me that there's nobody out there selling this. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I'm Tia Rosen. I'm at 142 Mountain. I did not expect to speak tonight. I spoke last month. I only got up because a couple people said, I don't know anyone who is in support of it. I am in support of it. I do like it. Oh,
Speak into the
can you hear?
microphone. Yeah, thanks.
I'm supposed to speak here.
Yeah.
I am in support of it. I'm not discounting any of your opinions, but I think there are
Excuse me, Tina,
a lot of people.
if you don't speak into the mic,
Sorry.
they can't get it on the TV.
Sorry.
So that's okay.
I think there are a lot of people who are in support of it. They are just not as passionate as some of the people who have challenges with it. And I think that is why some of the people who feel like they're not voicing that, because some of you are very passionate and they don't want to fight with their neighbors. And I trust council. I trust this process. I see that I'm curious to see what's going to happen with parking. But what I'm only here because I'm saying somebody said no one's in, oh. Okay. I support the project.
Why?
Excuse me.
Because I think it's good.
Excuse me. You are not interrupting other speakers. You had your turn.
I'm supportive of the council. I'm supporting the project that they're doing. I do want to know more about the parking situation that will come. I don't have all the suspicions that a lot of people do about what's going on with this project. I think there are many other people like me that are in support of the project. They just don't want to come out online in a meeting because just some of what's going on here. People are attacking people online, and I think a lot of people don't want to go through that. So I'm just saying I'm in support of it. That's it. Thank you.
I'm Amy McGuire. I'm going to
Hello.
spell them both. A-I-M-E-E. McGuire, M-C-G-U-I-R-E. I live at 156 Beechwood Road. I just, kind of on the lines of what Charlie had said a second ago, I want you guys to think about the 80s. Like, you made those choices in the 80s that were really bad. You had big hair, you had a mullet, or you just, you had some bad choices, right? And then maybe when you got older, you bought a house and you bought a piece of furniture and you spent a lot of money on it. And you look back and you're like, why did I buy that? You're about to make a decision for 22,000 people. 1,100 don't like it. That's pretty small, right? That's like, what is that? A small amount of that, right? But that's 1,100 people you're making that decision for too. I want you to really think about its size. It's hard for people to visualize that. I'm an interior designer by trade. My expertise is space planning. It is way too big, way too big. The design of the building is not in keeping with the design of Summit, the traditional look of this town, which is why all these people moved here. There needs to be more time. You need to really think about it. Get a building that's not a cookie cutter building. They're building one exactly like the one you presented in Morristown right now. It's 6 stories, but you get the vibe. It's very big, very big. Ground floor has the same retail type of scenario, and then apartment buildings above with the reset on the top floor, the 6th floor. It's exactly the same. So my point is just give it a minute. Wait through the summer so that everybody can come say their piece. We want to hear you say your piece, what you really, really think about it. Because once that thing's built, there's no going back. And that's going to fall on all of you guys. All this town is going to look back and wonder, why did they build that? It doesn't fit. It's too big. And you can't redo it. You can't tear it down and start over. It's way too expensive. So that's just my opinion. I'm not in favor of the project. One thing I'm really happy about, though, is that you guys picked a new vendor for the recycling program. I'm really happy about that because our streets were littered with boxes after the recycling day. Thank you.
Council President, I don't want to be blamed for anybody's hair in the 80s.
Okay.
Can I just put that on the record?
Sure.
Thank you. As the youngest
Duly
member.
noted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
None of us do. My name's Corrine Kelly. I live at 52 Oakland Place. Corrine Kelly. I live at 52 Oakland Place. Thank you all for your time and dedication to our beautiful town. I'm here tonight to voice my concern over the size and scale of Broad Street West. It doesn't seem to fit the character of downtown Summit. Also, the lack of parking and green technology is concerning. In my opinion, we should be implementing solar and green technology to offset the energy, waste, and water that this building will impact. Bike racks and native plantings are a start, but seem insubstantial on their own. Also, while it's good news to hear that affordable and workforce housing will be incorporated, I believe that this building will be primarily filled with young families landing temporarily to secure placement of their children in the Summit schools until they can find more permanent housing, not downsizing seniors. I think anybody that's familiar with Summit would have this concern. Also, I second the woman who spoke earlier about parking garages. I do not park in parking garages. And also, when I look to go shopping, I always start in Summit. I give it 10 minutes, and if I can't find a spot, I go to New Providence or Chatham or somewhere else. And that happens often. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening, good to see you all. Brian Fellman, 57 Madison Ave. I just have been listening to everybody's thoughtful comments, and I just want to make a point that, first of all, obviously, I think that I don't speak for everyone here, but I personally and my family appreciates all of the work that you guys do, and to go beyond that, like, we're all very fortunate to be here, and I mean that. This is a wonderful place to live. I'm not from here originally, but I'm very thankful to be able to raise my family here for many years to come. But also I wanted to bring up a couple of things related to Broad Street West and related to, you know, there's a lot of people here that want to know when should they be here? What should they be here for? What is the, you know, what are the, you know, there's a lot of people, everyone's talking about the 1,100 people. They want to know when should they show up? When is it going to be on the agenda? There was nothing on the agenda tonight, actually. You know, it was very, very nice to hear the, I was on the train, actually. I heard some of the opening remarks by the council president in terms of the timeline. But had we not known that, I didn't know that was going to happen. So, like, for example, if people didn't know, how would they have known to show up to speak about what's going on as it relates to the timeline, to times to show up to talk about these types of events? And I think that's very important, because if nobody was here, you would have gave your update and nobody would have been here to address it. But I also submitted something because I didn't know if I was going to be here. So just real quick, just the letter that Michael Rogers submitted on April 24th. He referred to subdistricts 1 and 2, saying there was a considerable negotiation and a complete change from early 2021. So I just wanted to know, what are those changes? Will we get to hear about all the sub-districts changes, 1, 2, and 3, before there's a vote on sub-district 3? Because I think they're all interconnected, as the way they were explained in the opening town hall that was virtual. So I think that's, you know, they have to be self-sufficient, but they're all interconnected. One is parking, some are housing, and I think it's very important for people to understand that. So that's one thing. And another thing that was stated was that there was this meeting, and also in the tap into, was that there's things being done with sub-district 3. So I just want to know, is it going to be in compliance with the redevelopment plan as is, in terms of the amount of units, as well as amount of parking, without any density bonuses, or using property for other places and things like that? Are we at 70 to 80 units? Are we at parking that is in consideration? And the last thing is, for the city administrator, I'd like to ask, can we have a fulsome conversation about the financials, not from the hired Nassau Capital Bob Powell? We need to hear more than 8 minutes, more than just the budget. We need to hear the cost benefit. We need to see it on paper. There's a lot of people in this town that can review it, research it, come back to you, and help make a positive outcome for this project. So I'm in support of the project when it's done right, but not as is. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Teresa McGoey, 113 Woodland Avenue. You know my husband, Kevin McGoey. I need to put my glasses on. So I'm sure you can guess that I am also against the size and magnitude of the building in Sub-District 3 at the Broad Street West redevelopment plan. I am against this current plan, not because I'm supporting my husband, but because of the facts that he has presented time and time again. First, the building is not in accordance to the master plan. The master plan, which has been around for decades and worked on through a bipartisan effort by past councils and numerous volunteers, one being Kevin, has been completely ignored in this building plan. What gives the council the right to have a complete disregard for the master plan? You have responded in previous meetings that it is in accordance to the master plan, but I've yet to see any detailed information from council that supports that response. And please don't send me to the facts page. It's not there. He's looked, I don't see it. Second, the numbers for this project just don't add up. There really doesn't seem to be significant financial gain, if any, when compared to a regular tax property. To the City of Summit, perhaps it's good for the municipal budget, but for a city as a whole, including both municipal and the Board of Education, it doesn't make sense. Council needs to look at the whole picture here. I will spare you the details of the numbers, but I'm sure Kevin will be happy to go over them with you again. Third, as council, you are here to listen to the concerns of Summit and not make overruling decisions on our behalf. 1,100 people and counting have signed the petition. That should be enough to cause pause in the process. When others learn about the project, and yes, unfortunately, people are still learning about this project, they are not on board. Take the time to listen. To be clear, no one I know is against a building in this location. It should adhere to the master plan and make financial sense to the town as a whole. My request is slow the process down and listen to the residents. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Diane Dresdale, 54 Valley View Avenue, Summit, New Jersey. I'm actually going to change the subject for a minute, something I hope we all can agree on, but I don't know. I'm here to just announce that on Friday, June 3rd is National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and I don't have to advertise why it's important. There was another mass shooting just this evening in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I hope that people will come out and recognize this day. We're going to have several speakers, including the Attorney General for the state of New Jersey. It's at 5 o'clock on the Village Green this Friday. And at the end of the day, I hope you listen to the speakers and you decide that preventing gun violence should be a priority in all our lives. I mean, our children should be our priority, and we don't want them feeling like they're threatened every day they go to school. The drills alone are debilitating emotionally. So I hope that you come to the rally and you listen to the speakers and maybe do a little research, and then as a result, in November, vote for candidates who believe in reasonable gun violence prevention legislation. And in addition, just so you know, most people aren't aware that there are 7 bills right now in the state, going through the state legislature, that would make our state even safer. Very common sense, again, bills, including safe storage of firearms, where you'd separate, make sure a loaded gun a gun is unloaded and locked in a lockbox, so we would certainly reduce the number of suicides, reduce the number of gun thefts, which are a lot of gun thefts as a result of guns left out. There's many reasons. There's several other parts of these bills that are very important, not just for safety, but also for law enforcement to follow up and solve crimes. So I hope people will come to the rally. I hope people will listen. I hope people will do their own research, and I hope people will vote in favor of gun violence prevention candidates in the fall. As far as, I'll make one quick comment on Broad Street West in Maryland. I'm not going to tell you that I'm 100% behind it. I, like everybody else, have same concerns. I do believe that it's critically important that everybody be respectful of our elected officials and respect how much work and effort they put in. And I think that some people are not hearing that our officials have listened to you, that they have put off finalizing decisions, that they're purposely, taking your comments, and as I understand it, and I gather there's legal reasons why we can't hear today. There have been comments, your comments and your concerns have been incorporated in new amendments. That's my understanding from what our council president has said. So contrary to what I'm getting, the vibe in the room, our council members are listening to you. They respect you. They want this town to be the best it can be. We do have financial concerns. Everybody's got to wake up to that because you don't want your taxes to go up. But we also want the character of the town to remain beautiful. We don't want huge buildings. I don't think anyone in council wants huge monolithic buildings. They're working as hard as they can to come up with a reasonable compromise, and they're listening to you, okay? That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Evening. My name's Drew Meany. I live at 18 Fernwood Road. I'm a longtime Summit resident. I learned to swim at the Y. I've been a taxpayer for 18 years. I've only come up to a council meeting and spoken 2 or 3 times. But I feel compelled to tonight because I'm just confused. I think the question why came up earlier, and I've been paying attention, and I haven't heard a compelling reason why you would do this. There's not really, I mean, if you have one, we would all love to hear it. The phrase or the term consequential came up as well. I think once you do this, you can't go back. That's the biggest. This will be the biggest thing in town. It'll dominate the landscape. It'll change the fabric of everything. And I just don't think you're considering that. I mean, you can't possibly be considering that. And the last thing that really concerns me is the process. Like trying to jam this through over the summer, it just seems, it reeks of either desperation or corruption.
Can I just say really quickly, it's nice to hear everybody say thank you and for your hard work and your many hours. But to allege potential corruption is beyond the pale.
My name is Patty Staunton, Staunton. I live on Clark Street in Summit. I am among the many here that do appreciate all that you do. We know you give a lot of your time, and it is appreciated. What I have in my hand here is the parking system and a review and evaluation from the City of Summit, which I found on the Summit website from dated November 2016. One of the areas that I have not heard addressed is the usage of the current surface lots that are in question. The Chestnut Street lot, according to your document, or I should say the document that I found on the website, lists the occupancy counts and The timeframes are from 8, 10, noon, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 p.m. On Thursday, June 9, 2016, the Chestnut Street lot had a capacity of 59 spaces, according to this document, and I'm just going to read the numbers, and they're for those timeframes. At 8 a.m., it was 60 vehicles that were there with 59 vehicle capacity. 55, 54, 52, 47, 36, 32, and 24. So in 2016, this lot was used. And I know it's not part of this particular discussion, but I know we're also looking at the parking lot between the YMCA and the library lot, and that has a capacity of 104 spaces. On Thursday, June 9th, 37, 105, 65, 46, 82, 97, 79, and 57 spots were used. So, and in those spots are handicap spots. And I don't understand how we're taking away handicap spots. We have handicap residents that use those spaces for the church, for St. Teresa's services. We know we have people that use those spaces for the YMCA and the library. So I don't understand how we can take that away. The other thing that I don't understand is how we can put up a big building without a generator. We know, I lost power twice on Friday. Fortunately, not for a long period of time, but we know we lose power, and often it's not for a couple hours. So a generator is definitely something that should be included with this plan. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi. Tracy Keegan, 15 Sweetbriar Road. I actually came here to support Diane Dresdale tonight with the announcement of the gun violence prevention rally, but I felt compelled to say something quickly about Broad Street West because I do support it. As an on and off Summit resident for the last 23 years, I wholeheartedly support Broad Street West. You are all highly qualified, capable people who I know have Summit's best interest in heart. You have consulted with experts, including a Princeton professor, an expert on the matter, Bob Powell, have listened to your constituents, and have put years into this effort. And the fact that there are more people who support this project than don't says something. As with many changes, we often hear from those who feel most passionately, but when the same voices keep coming out and speaking against it, time and again, one wonders what is their true motivation behind it. You have withstood the slings and arrows of those not actually in the arena, and I thank you for that. I support Broad Street West because I like the idea of workforce housing. I like that we are fulfilling part of our low-income housing requirement, and I love the idea of a development that is walkable and focused on those who commute. I thank you all for all of the time you have spent and dedicated to our town, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results of your hard work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Keegan.
Hi, thank you for your time. My name is Liz Royden, R-O-Y-D-E-N. I'm at 12 Sayre Street, and I'm just so passionate about not going ahead with this project. I only heard about it because of Allison. I was walking my dogs, and she was on her bike, and she stopped me, and she told me, she said, "Have you heard about this development that they're planning?" And I was like, "No." And she said, "Oh, it's a Toll Brothers development," and that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Because when I think of Summit, I'm not originally from here. I'm from Kentucky. I moved to New York City when I was in my early 20s, and I've only been here for 13 years. When I think of, I mean, I have a visceral reaction. When I think of Summit, I think it's so sweet, it's beautiful suburban tree-lined streets, it's absolutely gorgeous. And then I think of Hoboken, and then I think of Jersey City, and what do I think? Toll Brothers Development. And it's just not with the character that Summit, you know, I'm so upset right now. I studied architecture, and I don't have all the answers, but please give it another year. It's not going to kill anybody. I think somebody should just go right back to the drawing board, literally, and start all over. And I mean, I'm sorry. I'm like about to like cry up here. I just don't understand it. It boggles my mind. And I'm just asking you guys to just please step back and give it some more time. I'm on social media all the time, and I didn't even know about this until somebody, Allison, came by and just said, hey, here's a flyer. And, you know, it's you know, and thank you for your time. I do appreciate it, but just please, just give it more time. Thank you.
My name is Greg Sachs at ACHS, 92 Mountain Avenue. Lived in Summit for 50 years. Been a member of the master plan in the past, and I'm strongly opposed to this plan as currently described. It's much too massive for the size of the project involved. I think you have to go back and rethink it, and I'd be very desirous if you could find a local architect who would give his input into it, who had sensitivities for the city of Summit. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
I don't have anything in writing, but I do have 4 points. It's not going to take 3 minutes.
Okay.
First of all, some people, I'm definitely in with the majority here tonight, and some people have said, where were you when this was discussed on Zoom? Well, that's part of the problem. When the pandemic was here, there wasn't a lot of discussion. You may have had a lot of discussion for all the time you spent, but you have to realize that people were not tuned in. They weren't here at meetings like tonight. Number two, why is it so big? Does it have to pay for the firehouse? I hope not. The firehouse should stand on its own, and like any other project, and not, we have to have it this, so we can pay the 12, now 15 million for the firehouse. That's not a good, I understand, but yeah, a lot of people think that, and so I'm putting that out. Number three, this is not one project, District 3. It's 3. One is a no-starter. Housing on the parking lot between the Y and the library is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. What effect does the removal of that, leaving that parking lot for the Y and the library, have on the overall finances? And finally, I understand what you're saying. I've been to a lot of council meetings over the years. Why are you saying the same thing over and over and over again? Because you got to get it. I'm Gil Oren.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, Miriam Zahn, 65 Woodland. I want to say I support redevelopment of Broad Street West. I support developing the area where the fire station is. I think most of the people here probably support putting something there. And I think what I am concerned about is the scale, as what it sounds like a lot of people are. So I started looking. I said, I don't know if any of the council members here have actually gone by a 480-foot building that's 5 stories tall to know what it feels like to be next to that building. So I started looking at what in Summit do we have that's 480 feet? What do we have that's close to it? If you look at the facade of LCJSMS, That building is 30% smaller than Broad Street West will be lengthwise, facade-wise, but it's on 4.8 acres. Broad Street West is on 1.5 acres. LCJSMS is set back. So I think this is a question of scale. It's not a question of whether to build something here. It's about what's the right thing. And I think we probably need to hit the pause button, reset, and say, what is right here? Can we actually go and look at a 480-foot-long building, 5 stories high, and say, is this right for Summit before we go ahead and push this through? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Dory Gagnon, 27 Bedford Road. I want to thank Dr. Rubino for coming out here and speaking out. What he said meant a lot about pausing on that parking garage. I think I was one of the people that came and probably spoke, which I didn't come to many meetings back then, but I seem to be here every single council meeting. I also want to bring to light at the Board of Ed meeting that I attended, which I want to thank the Board of Ed for having an open dialogue. It was really important to be able to talk to them, and they were really receptive to the residents' concerns, so I want to thank them. I also was brought to light that they hired a demographer to study the children coming into the schools because there's 22 increase enrollment in kindergarten. And with the possible recession happening, kids might not be going into private schools, and with the only 24 children that are going to be in Broad Street West 3, there's a concern that there's going to be too many kids in the school system. So this $37 million bond that they're going to be doing, and a lot of people in the audience might not even be aware of this, they're going to be coming into council, and the vote's going to be in July. So there's a lot of things that are happening within the city of Summit that people might not even be aware of, and there's too much happening right now. And so what I'm coming to say is we need to put a pause on a lot of things. SDI sent out a survey yesterday about the Maple Street closure for permanent good, which is going to cause a lot more traffic if that happens. So people need to check their mailboxes and emails to do that survey. So that's something that's happening. And this Board of Ed coming to council and having this proposal, if there's enough classrooms to handle maybe an influx of kids with Broad Street West, I think it's a big concern, and all the overdevelopment happening in Summit, or redevelopment, I should say, happening in Summit. And also PSE&G, they told me it's going to take 2 years with all the road closures within Summit. A lot of people are navigating around their streets, rerouted to get to home. That's a big concern too. If Broad Street West is going to happen, Maple Street is closed, and I can't even get down Woodland to get to my home. So how is that going to all work? I think there's so many projects going on right now that people aren't aware that it's really impacting, and there's just too much happening, and there's not enough information going out to the residents. Like Allison's friend said, she didn't know about it until she was handed a flyer. I think the city has to hand out information. Having a public meeting, a special meeting now it's called, after school is out, people aren't here. It's not fair for us. We're here all the time, but people plan family vacations. We're gone. We all want to be present. Is there going to be a Zoom session? Like Miss Little's not here. Is she going to be able to be present? Can we participate in a Zoom session? It's really important for us to be able to partake in those things. But again, we have college visits, family vacations, and a special meeting to be had after school is out is really hard for everybody. And there's so much happening this summer that we all really want to partake in it. I really think everyone needs to look at what's happening in general in the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Beth Welsh, 129 Blackburn Road, Summit, New Jersey. Almost born and raised here, came here when I was 2. I do want to echo what I've heard over and over again. We really do thank you for all the time and trouble and thought you put into all of this. And I know, this will be a legacy item. So I know it's really weighing on you all. But I just want to switch the subject just a little bit, because as I read the documents, it sounds like when we pick a developer for whatever gets built on Broad Street, that developer then rolls forward for everything. And I would just suggest, that's what I do professionally is manage property, that I might just suggest that if you do something with somebody, you leave it open as to whether or not you're going to pick them up for the next projects, because if you find that you're disappointed and you're committed to them through the documents you sign, that could end up being another problem. So I would just, as I read the documents, it sounds like once somebody's designated, they get all of it. So I just would suggest to think about that too, that if you're going to be redoing the documents, make sure you have an ability to switch developers. If you're not satisfied with their work or the way they work with you, they make a traffic nightmare and they don't comply with what they promised to do, all that kind of stuff, you want to make sure you can, look out for the best for all of us. Thank you, because I know you do. I know you really do. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vikram Kulkarni, Kulkarni. I am a Summit resident for last 15 years. I live on 19 Baltusrol Place. This is the first time I'm attending a meeting, and I don't have any prepared remarks or anything.
Welcome.
Just going to give it a try. A couple of days ago, I heard about this project, and I came here because I really wanted to know why. So I was really curious why this really large project is happening in the center of the town when we are really having traffic issues, congestion issues, pollution issues, just a whole bunch of issues that are going to destroy the character of this town. And I didn't hear anything about the why. And I'm a very rational person. You might call me somewhat suspicious, but once I didn't hear any why, then the next question was who? Who is behind this thing? And then I realized that I'm not going to even get that answer. And the third question I moved to is what? What are the motivations? And having lived on this planet Earth for 56 years, I can only suspect what the motivations are. And I don't want to impinge on anybody's integrity or anything like that. But I think if the answers to the question why are not forthcoming, I think a lot of people are going to have the other two questions popping up in their mind. Who and what? And I don't think we should be living in a town where neighbors are suspicious of each other. I think for the sake of community and sake of integrity and sake of happiness, I think we should be transparent. And I'm urging you to be more transparent with us. We are all adults. We understand financial logic. A lot of people are very educated, very sophisticated. This is one of the most educated towns that I have lived in. So there are people with credentials galore. They know what they're doing. And we can participate and we can contribute. Just give us a chance. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Okay. If there are any people who wrote it, okay, so we've got one more. All right, and after that, if there's anyone who's written in and sent us an email, and you should plan to read your own comment or make your own comment, because if you're here, we're not going to read it. It's simpler to have you guys just make your own comments, okay? So go ahead, Mr. McGoey.
All right, Kevin McGoey, I'm more sick of being here than you are of seeing me. So I'll try to explain to everybody in my dealings with you, which have been extensive, why this is happening. You're doing this because you think it's a good deal and we financially need it. You've said multiple times to me that if we don't do this building, we're going to have to cut services. And that reads great on a bumper sticker. You've told me when I said that money can't be the reason for doing something this extreme, well, we're going to have to disagree on that. Okay? It's all about the money. And that's the only reason why I talk about the financials. If it's not about the money, then what is it about? Is it about workforce housing? Because this workforce housing is not affordable housing. Not only, it's not.
I know,
You agree with me, right? And the developer is not paying for it. They're not paying for those units. They are excluded from the price calculations, as are the affordable housing units. They are not included in Bob Powell's computations. He took $8 million and divided by 112 units to get $71,000. There's 100 per unit. There are 119 units if you exclude the 21 affordable housing units. The workforce housing aren't even allocated to people who work in Summit. It is a made-up thing that benefits an issue that we've never, ever mentioned. It was never mentioned in the master plan reexamination, or any of it. So let's go back to the money, okay? It's not $71,000 a unit, because we're giving them $1.75 million up front. We are taking out a loan, a mortgage, Marjorie. This is not money that we're giving them $1.75 million and we're paying $1.75 million over 30 years, as you said in the last meeting. Yes, you did. That's exactly what you said. You said it's better to have money now. Everybody knows it's better to have money now than have it, and pay it back over 30 years than it is later. It's not. We are taking out a $1.75 million loan. Powell had it at 4%. At the time he put it out, when our prevailing interest rates were 2%. So it wasn't even a good loan for us. We were giving the developer $1.75 million to correct whatever. Move the gas line, I think Powell said, everything else. So really what we're getting paid for this property is $6.25 million. If you divide $6.25 million by the 119 units, they're paying $52,521 a door. That is ridiculously cheap. Powell said, what, the high end of the range was 75, right? That doesn't even include the over $20 million in taxes the developer is saving. I asked you guys, I wrote in the last meeting because I was unable to attend, what are you present valuing that $20 million saving stream over 30 years? Didn't get a response. If you use a 6% discount rate, it's $9.3 million. So we're giving them a $1.75 million loan that we're paying back. We're giving them $9.3 million in today's money in tax breaks, right? And they're giving us $8 million in return. And those taxes go to us. I know you say, oh, well, some of it goes to the county. Well, some of that comes back to us. $650,000 of the $1.3 million taxes they would have paid go to our schools. We pay for that. I understand you don't get the money to spend, right? Also, where did the $8 million come from? I've asked you and I've asked Danny, right? Okay.
Wrap up.
Do you know where the $8 million came from? That came from a number that a friend of mine and a friend of yours said he came up with when they were talking about the firehouse, that they thought it was a good number to use to reduce the cost of the firehouse. This money is not going to reduce the cost of the firehouse. This is going to the reserve fund to spend over time on nothing. So it's money, and they don't even know what they're doing with the money. I tried to help them, but they don't listen to anything.
Okay, that's enough. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else from the public who wants to comment? Come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Andres Quesada, QUESADA. I'm on 8 Glendale Road. I've never met any of you, and I've only been here 5 years in Summit, so I think I've got a junior status in the room. I went from Northern Virginia here to New Jersey about 5 years ago, and we fell in love with Summit after traveling several cities up the rail line, because I worked in New York City at the time, looking at schools, looking at towns, until we hit this place. And this was kind of like this little oasis of beauty and solitude and comfort that we found and fell in love with almost immediately. Over the past 5 years, it's only grown within me and my family, my wife and 2 children, about how much this town means to us. So that, and then looking at the comments that are coming from the room, and I respect everybody's opinions, even those that have support for the project and those that are somewhere in the middle and want to see changes. I have the opportunity from when I lived in Virginia to live in 2 different places in Northern Virginia. One, a place called Reston, that was what they called it because it wasn't yet a town, and then watch it develop enormously because of some really bad choices that were made about the downtown there and expanding the growth into large towers and mixed housing, et cetera. And what that impact had to that community through traffic and the number of people that were coming from DC and surrounding areas just to go shopping and then to come out to commute from those extra housing units out of the town to both DC and at the surrounding areas because there were technology hubs in the towns around it. I remember I think it was 2 weeks ago, there was an accident on the highway that drove all the commuter traffic straight through the city. That made me think tonight about what consequences a development with this, like this would have for all those cars that would travel from the center of the city out to the locations to where they're going for work. And that's not just the highway, but surrounding communities. And even just on the weekends or during the day for schooling for their children. As I've got a daughter in the middle school. I've got a son at the elementary school. The middle school traffic is enormous. And everybody's spoken about that. I don't think I should go over it ad nauseum because you guys know it too. We all live here. Knowing where I came from to here and understanding why I'm staying makes me think about the people that have been here the longest and why they treasure it so much. It's not just because they don't want to shift or a change. I heard everybody speak right now, and a majority of the people that came up said the same thing. It's like we support something there, we just don't like the scale of it. I work in an industry where talking to the people you're creating something for is important to get data back. But to give them as much information as you can to understand their feelings about how you're creating that thing only makes the thing you're creating better. And to lack that transparency in that conversation makes you launch to market with something that's going to fail. And I feel like maybe somewhere in that we're kind of like aligned that this is a transparency issue, a communication issue where people want more to feel comfortable with the direction we're going. And if it's not getting that right away, maybe there's that pause that everybody's talking about will allow for that conversation to make your pitch for what this is supposed to be. I admire greatly the guy in the advertising world speaking about like Coke is or the Zero Coke is an example. There's lots of other examples about how things came out as a great idea from the start and didn't quite hit the mark because the market was not appreciative of the end result. This is kind of that opportunity to kind of like lengthen discussion a little bit and get that true sentiment from a majority of the people here, if not more. 1,100 people is fine. It's a small fraction of, I think, the conversation that you'd open up by lengthening this out past summertime. Thanks.
Thank you. Did you have a comment? Come on up. Good evening.
My name is Stacy Allen. I live on Plymouth Road. I've lived in Summit for 22 years, and I see my representative right there. And I ask all of you to represent us in Summit. That is your job, to represent us. I think it's pretty obvious that we all want this project to slow down. A lot of us, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us would like this project to slow down. I think a summer plan for what you guys are talking about is unfair to the town people. So this plan obviously needs to comply with the redevelopment plan, and it doesn't do that right now. So I'm asking that you postpone anything at least till the fall, and let's just be reasonable. Because we all love our town, just like you guys all love this town, and we all want the best for everybody. We do not want something that's going to hurt our town and make it so that our taxes and our investment in our homes goes down. So we need for this project to not do any harm. And I think that's what everybody here is very upset about. I think making sure we don't do any harm. So please, please, please wait a little while and pause on your timing. Thank you.
Any other comments? Are we done?
Anyone who's written in?
Yeah, we have a few written. Yeah, so is there, Mr. Hardy, you wrote in. Are you? Okay. Would you like to speak? Because we're not, if you're here, we're not going to read your comment.
But the council will read it.
Yes, we will read it. We'll just not read it out loud.
Oh,
Okay, that's fine. We certainly have all read it. Okay, is there anyone else who is here that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so I'll let you go ahead and read the comments.
Okay, so there were emails received between yesterday and today, and earlier today, I forwarded them all to the mayor and council. These emails will be made part of the official minutes. The following people did write in. I will not read out the names of the people who came here and spoke tonight that originally sent in those emails. Molly Adams, Mealy Place, Christine Ertl, Harvey Drive, Jill Joseph, Beekman Road, Marilyn Millard, Beekman Terrace, Dodie Perrone, Hillcrest Avenue, Robert Rui, Portland Road, Rachel Simon, Elm Street, Mark Wadman, Michigan Avenue. Let me see, and that's it. Their summary of their comments are as follows. They expressed concerns regarding the length, height, and size of the building being too big and lacks adequate parking. Concerns that construction of a multi-story garage near the library in the Y would ruin aesthetics of the library and would adversely impact seniors, handicapped, and family and caregivers with children. Suggestion to reconsider the design to be in compliance with the redevelopment plan and the master plan. Concerns that council is ignoring pleas of the citizens and taxpayers. 30-year financial agreement is too long. More information should be shared. Public presentation should be moved to September after many have returned from vacation. Any binding action on behalf of the city in connection with any part of the redevelopment plan should not take place during the summer. Question regarding when new iterations addressing concerns regarding scale and design of the building will be made available to the public, referencing our city administrator's comments in the TAP. This person wrote that they love Summit, but the downtown is already too congested and lacks parking now, and they do most of their shopping and dining in the neighboring towns, where parking is free and readily available, and easy to access restaurants and stores. The project will forever change the complexion of the city and add to existing problems in the downtown. There was a suggestion to put the project to a vote in November so that voters will have a chance to speak. The sale price of the building is too low, and the seller financing is outrageous. The property should have been sold for higher than $25 million. There has been no update as to when the next public meeting will take place to have a discussion with professionals before the redevelopment agreement is adopted. And lastly, suggestion to pare down the project to 2 buildings and 4 stories or less with 75 units and cancel the letter of agreement with Toll Brothers and simply start over. Council President, there was one email that was different from all the rest, and it spoke about concerns they had just in general in the downtown, if I may read that one.
Okay,
It's
is
a
it a
little
Broad
lengthy.
Street West one?
It's not Broad Street
So
West.
maybe let's.
Do you want to
get rid of-
finish Broad
Yes,
Street?
I think that would be
Okay.
great, just
Okay.
one less thing to think.
That's fine.
Keep in my head.
Okay.
Okay, so for the questions that we got by email, there was a question about why won't council bid out this project? And as I described last meeting, the redevelopment process does not involve bids. In the summer of 2019, the steering committee put out a request for qualifications and received 13 responses from redevelopers. We interviewed those developers. Yep. Sorry, I apologize. We put out a request for proposals and received responses from 8 redevelopment teams after that. And then we once again met with each of those teams and evaluated the proposals. So at the end of 2019, council conditionally designated L&M and Toll Brothers. So a lot of you guys are talking about Toll Brothers, but it's actually a partnership of the two. And we chose that for a reason, because L&M is, brings other things to the table. They bring the more creative part of it, and Toll Brothers is what you think of when you think of apartments, but the two together, bring a lot of strengths to the project. And after we designated them at the end of 2019, we began the process of negotiating the terms of the project. So that is why we're not, this is not a bid process. That's not how it works. By statute. Right. A redevelopment law does not allow bidding. That's just not how it's done. So there was a suggestion about putting this up for a vote. Again, that's another one under the state law. A project like this is not subject to referendum. And this is an immensely complicated project. It doesn't lend itself to a referendum kind of process. That's why we brought in people. We started this process in 2017. We've been talking about this for a very long time, and there's been a public process throughout. So that is the way that we have engaged the public. No, this is, you all made your comments, now I'm responding. It's not a back and forth. I'm sorry, sir. Okay. Let's see. There were questions about why, and I think, we've been talking about why, but I think I'm gonna kick it off, and then I'm gonna give other council members an opportunity to explain why we support this project and why this project is what it is. So this is something redevelopment has been talked about for 30, 40 years probably in this community. And it's, as you can see, it's not an easy process. It brings out opposition. People don't necessarily understand why we're doing this. But the redevelopment process allows us, first of all, rather than selling the property, which gives us no control over what's built there, we are able, through the redevelopment process, to designate a developer who, after interviewing 13 developers, this was one that had a project that it conformed to what we were looking for, what we thought would work in this community. And it allowed us to negotiate with them to reach an agreement on, or to reach out, but what is a proposed agreement on something that will address a number of concerns we have. And finances is only one of those things. But I'm going to actually throw it to our city administrator to talk about the finances and why.
Council President,
Oh,
as
yeah.
finance chair, could I
Sure,
add to
absolutely.
that? And then Michael can
Yes,
certainly,
absolutely.
hopefully help
Okay,
fill
so
in for me.
Let me finish the
Sure.
other points, and then I'll throw it to you.
Sure,
Okay,
thank you.
Councilmember Vartan. So finances is one. The affordable housing is another one, and that's not correct to say that we don't have an obligation. We have to get best efforts at 50 units by 2025. If we don't get that, we're back in court. And so the question is, what happens to us? We're back in court, and we end up possibly with more requirements on having to do more redevelopment. And this is, someone listed some of the other developments. Those projects are already accounted for. We've met 17 of our 50. We have 33 to go. It's a lot more, it's a bigger number than you think, and this is, if we stepped away from this project now, we would be found not, and we didn't make 50 units, we would be found not to be in compliance. So that's another thing. The other thing is that when we did the master plan, there were people who said what they wanted was a neighborhood here where there's now a firehouse, an ugly parking lot. Really, Broad Street is not a neighborhood. It's a kind of unattractive street. And this was something that people said they wanted, was a walkable neighborhood near the downtown. It's transit-oriented development. So a lot of these concerns that people are saying about traffic, this was a policy decision we made as a council, that we wanted a transit-oriented development where the premium wasn't on having 2 or 3 cars in your, per unit. This is intended to be a place where people choose to live because they want to be able to walk to town, walk to the train station, live a mostly, I wouldn't say car-free life, but certainly not a car-dependent life. And if the redevelopers didn't think there was a market for it, they wouldn't be doing it. And there are properties. There's a new building that went up on Summit Avenue that has 1 parking spot per apartment. This is the demand that people want this kind of housing. There's a market for it. So those are, and the other thing is that this is helpful to the downtown. It creates foot traffic in the downtown. It's not going to create traffic in the downtown because people who live there are not going to be driving there. And Kevin, you've had your time to talk. I'm responding.
I can't rebut, but you
No, you can't rebut.
No, I know. Then you can say whatever you want, and then it doesn't have to be true.
Enough. Okay, so,
Council
go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. So we had our budget hearing at the beginning of May. I was thinking during that budget hearing that Broad Street might come up. There was only one question, and it was about parking, and it didn't come up. But I did have prepared something to say. So first, we have and will continue to have a revenue problem. We should be glad that the value of property in Summit continues to rise. But we are also aware that the cost of government and share of the tax burden borne by residential properties continues to rise as well. We are only permitted to raise taxes 2% over the year before. And this year, we needed to raise the municipal rate by 1.98%. This is partially due to lost revenue for the third year in a row related to the pandemic. But it's also related to increasing cost. Things like salary and pension obligations, but especially debt service, which brings me to my second point. We have and will continue to have a debt problem. Municipal debt service has increased dramatically in the last several years. This is because of capital projects that have taken place over many years. Debt service is now the third largest line item in the operating budget. Our debt service will continue to increase for at least the next 5 years, and extremely difficult but necessary choices were made to drastically cut proposed capital projects and equipment, not eliminating the need for them, but rather pushing them off. By doing that, we are making the fiscally responsible choice that this is the first year in a very long time that the city will pay off more debt than it's taking on. And third, we've talked about the affordable housing obligation. The city does not have sufficient capital to build that housing, so we must rely on private development in order to meet our commitment. So far, only 17 units have either been constructed or are currently being constructed toward that commitment. By redeveloping and entering into an agreement with developers for payment in lieu of taxes, we will create a new source of significant revenue for the next 30 years. By selling the land, we will get funds to offset some of our debt and allow us to continue pursuing investment in our roads, sidewalks, parks, vehicles, and other infrastructure. And finally, as part of the project, we will get closer, significantly closer, to our 50-unit affordable housing commitment. There is no silver bullet, no perfect solution to any of these challenges that we face. But members of the community, I think, should feel proud that for years, members of council from both parties, members of the community, and our dedicated professionals have been working to leverage the tremendous opportunity that Broad Street presents. I am excited for the meeting that we will have, and I look forward to talking about the details of the updated plans and the amendments to the plan as well. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to talk about the why? Councilmember Little?
I have a few comments, and I was hoping that, I think Council President, you've been carrying the burden of responding to these public comments, and I'm happy that we can kind of help with this tonight. But there's a few things I wanted to respond to. First was Mr. Bennett, who raised the issue of looking at the cost and pledged that we haven't given a full cost analysis of this project, and I beg to differ on that, and on the way he characterized the costs and how we should be looking at them. We have provided a lot of information on the financials, including having our financial expert come and speak at a meeting and answering dozens of questions from the public and explaining it and having lots of information on the website. These concerns have been brought up at a number of council meetings that we haven't provided financial information, especially on the cost. And we've explained over and over again, it's very difficult to characterize the cost in the way that these commenters seem to want us to do it. And I'm going to give an example. In calculating garbage costs, for example, because I sit on the CAP committee, and we look at that, and I'm also on the steering committee for Broad Street West. It's very difficult to calculate the extra cost of this building when we already have a garbage route set up in that area that has capacity, and it can handle the garbage from this, and the garbage and the extra waste that's going to come from this project. How do you calculate that extra cost of making an extra stop on their already existing route? It's very difficult. How do you calculate the cost of extra sewage into a sewage line that already exists and already has capacity? It's very difficult to parse out those costs. The way that Mr. Bennett calculated, saying that we should take the budget for the police department and divide it by the number of residents, come up with a cost per resident for the police, or this sewage cost per resident and divide it, or the school cost divided by the number of students, you have a cost per student is just not the way that we can do it. It's not a helpful number in looking at this. And when we have these systems like schools and sewage and police and fire, there's a fixed cost to having that service at all. And any marginal cost that comes from an extra resident is not calculated by a per resident basis. If you're going to have schools, the fixed cost of having schools include heating the schools and cooling the schools and hiring the teachers and the pensions and everything. Adding one extra child in that school does not raise the cost by the amount of the school budget divided by each student. It's just, that's not the way that we can look at these costs, and it's not helpful to us. So there's no reason for us to do that because it's not a helpful number, doesn't help anything. Secondly, Mr. Kuzmana said none of us have been giving a sales pitch. Well, there's a good reason for that, and we have also explained this over and over again, is that we have involved the community in this process, and to an extent that most communities never do when they are doing rent redevelopment. From the beginning, I've been on council for 5 years, it's going on long before me. We have, but it's in my entire 5 years on council so far, we have been involved in this process, and we have been listening, reaching out, taking information, bringing that through this process. We had dozens of listening sessions with the public at the beginning of this. They have continued. We presented this project last over a year ago to the public. We gave them the first plans at the town meeting at the community center in January and every council meeting. We have been listening instead of pitching you. We have been taking all of your comments patiently and continuously and listening and bringing them back and absorbing that information. At every council meeting, 36 people spoke tonight. Similar numbers at every council meeting we have had since then. Daily emails, daily texts, daily Facebook messages, people talking to us on the street when we go out. There has been constant listening on our part. We aren't pitching you because we are taking that information, absorbing it, and going back to the developers and trying to come up with the best project possible. The people are saying that we aren't listening, I think are equating that with that we aren't doing what they are asking us to do. But that is not our job, because the people, it is our job to make the best decision for everyone in the community, not just the people coming out tonight, and to make the best decisions possible given all the circumstances. It's very easy to come in and look at this project in a bubble and say, I don't like it, it's too big, it's too high, it's too long, it's too dense, it doesn't have enough parking, and not look at it in the context of all the things that we need to solve for, which are financials, which is the quality of life, which are meeting the needs of the community in all kinds of different ways, and figuring out the best compromise and the best thing to do with this project, and that's what we have been doing. I think we're close to that point. And so we are close to a point where we can start pitching this project. But as Marjorie said, I'll just reiterate, we had dozens of listening sessions. Some of the concerns that were brought up in those were for workforce housing, because our teachers and our police officers and firefighters and those types of people in our town have a very difficult time living in our town. We also have an affordable housing obligation. We have surface parking lots that are unattractive and bring no income into the city. And we have a fire station that was woefully out of date and too small for the purposes of which we asked it for. We had all these competing interests. So we did have, someone said to me there was no demand, during the meeting, not to me, but in the meeting, there was no demand for this kind of project before we decided to do this, and that's just not true. We had all these demands. Please make this area nicer and more walkable. Please a new fire station. Please more affordable housing. Please more workforce housing. Please more housing next to town. So we're meeting those demands with this project. The number one concern I've heard from residents walking and being on council and being your voice is to please keep Summit affordable. And that people have concerns with Summit being affordable and their taxes being too high. This is what solves that. This type of project helps our revenues and helps us to do that for you. So this project is us listening and taking all of those concerns and making those difficult decisions, which we are required to do. The other thing is that there's no support for this project. We heard from a few residents who were brave enough to get up and talk tonight. I have also heard from many residents who say, I think it sounds great. And I do agree with Mr. Rosen who got this vote that I think the people who just think it's great don't feel that same passion though to come out and speak on it. They also have run into the type of response that Ms. Rosen got tonight, where people that are passionate really push back on it. I will take it one step further. As Council President Fox said, we can't put this up to referendum, it's not allowed. But we did have a vote in November. And the three candidates who were reelected, myself, Councilman Martin, Councilman Vinegar, all of our opponents ran a campaign that definitely addressed Broad Street West and came out against it. There were mailings every day, it was a big issue that they were against it, we were for it, and we were all elected. So there was a vote in some ways, and if we stated all of us that we were very much in favor of this project, our opponents said they were against it.
Excuse me.
Now, that's my turn. We are not jamming this through. We are listening. People asked to put a pause on it, and I would just say that we have been looking at thoughtful, deliberate process for the last 5 years. We have been listening to comments for the last 6 months. We are going into our comments on the site. We have to move forward and accept that responsibility, which is why we elected us and have to. I think my last comment is, I have 2 last comments, and I know President Cohen will let my other comments speak. I'm going to respond directly to Councilmember Rubino, former Councilmember Rubino, because we served together. And I will say, I'm a little disappointed in the way he characterized it. I think, we served together, we made a lot of difficult decisions together. I know that he understands the responsibility that comes from being on council, making these difficult decisions. And I know he knows that, even though there is outcry against something, sometimes he needs to make a decision and go forward. And there was a lot of outcry and public opposition to the pipeline project, but we all voted to move forward on that. The public opposition is something that we have to weigh all the factors, make a decision. It doesn't necessarily mean that we vote no. And I know that he understands that. I also know that he was on council, I don't remember the exact timing, whether he was still president or not. But he was certainly a council member when the council voted unanimously to declare the area in need of redevelopment and to move forward with this redevelopment project, because he knows that we need this. So I hope, and then my last comment is just that several people tonight, including someone I actually know well, accused us again of corruption. And I'll just say that I really am so disappointed that we keep having to address this. And speaking for myself personally, and I know for every member of council, there's no amount of money that could make me commit a federal felony. There's no amount of, there's nothing that anyone could offer me. And I know that I speak for all of us. It would force us to act in this way. So, I said this about comments about me not being here in public. I hope I don't have to ever address this again. But can we just, maybe we could just stop with that, because it's not seemly, it's not reflective of the type of service and the type of spirit of neighbor, helping neighbor that we have here in Summit. So maybe we just end those comments completely.
Thank you, Councilmember Little. So, Councilmember Hairston.
Thank you, Council President. I'm so disappointed everybody left, because this really was the opportunity for us to, our fellow councilmen, to respond to the many really helpful comments that were raised. And I want to thank you all for showing up. Even if it was instigated to come out in a negative way, this is how democracy works. And as much as I love democracy, I love Summit more. And I know that's why we're up here to take the good with the bad. And so what I want to say is that the big issues that I heard being discussed, Council President, I thank you for your remarks in responding to some of the very specific facts that you have to keep saying over and over again because they're facts. What I am hearing in terms of that word, hearing, what I want to say as an admission on my part, that being quiet and listening to what you're saying, I've done you a disservice because I haven't shared with you that I am hearing what you're saying, that I am hearing what you're saying, and that you are informing what is happening with it that can be amended. And that is what Councilwoman Little was sharing with you. We're listening, we're taking it in, we go back and we deal with the developers, with our experts, with our staff, with the city staff. 2017 is when this started and when there was an amazing outpouring to the community and really outpouring to hear what would you like to see your city look like. And so those who've said their families were here for 100 years, and I fall into that same category, and we are not going to be able to stop the change that is coming. We want to manage it in a way that serves all of the people. And so I'm grateful that you come in and share what you don't like. Sometimes the way you do it is awful. And that's why we're here. We are supposed to take that on. But it isn't that we don't hear what you're saying. And very good comments come up. But I do agree with the people who said that we need to be communicating back to you. And maybe marketing and pitching is not the way that it is. One of the things that I was like, we do need to do that. That would be helpful in showing that there is something good to it. But I do not want us to discount that we had crises in our country, in our globe, that shut us down for a good deal of time. And we're just acting as if that didn't have any consequences on it. And that is the reason why the finances matter so much. And so I know our administrator and our finance chair will be able to interact with you because this is complex. This is complex redevelopment that I see happening in other communities in a celebrated way. So that's why when people say they're confused, I was really confused. I was like, for where I sat with leaf blowers, I said, who could not think leaf blowers are not a terrible thing with the noise that they make? Well, there were a lot of people who didn't think that. And so that was an eye-opener for me. I want to, I really would like to address all of the things that were mentioned, and I know we are going to get an opportunity. I want to speak to our council president's promise that there will be community interaction. And so the town hall terminology, calling it special meeting, taking the time out to let each person come up and speak to it, is that interaction, and there will be special meetings, and we will take out time, and we are taking out time. And what I do want to admit, we're not reflecting back to you that we hear you, and we got to do better. We got to do better than that. So There probably is something else that I want to say, but I just want to say.
You can hop in later.
Okay, I am disappointed everybody got up and left in a huff like that, because there's some really good things that will be shared in response. We've decided we're going to stop, not that we're going to stop listening, but we will be able to reflect back to you what we're hearing, and good questions that are asked about what happened with the master plan, and have we veered away from it. I, who have a career in compliance background, am not going to knowingly vote on anything that would say we were out of compliance, and all these lawyers up here are not going to do that either. And what I am concerned that we have lost your confidence, and that we need to take the time to gain your confidence back. And some people were not. Some people who are rude and yelling at our council president in a rude way, we're not going to change your mind. But the most people who love this town and care about this town and don't want something that's going to change the character, we do want to hear what they have to say, and we do want to figure out how to address all of these competing issues here. You don't want parking garage. You don't want downtown. There's some competition in there that we have to think of solutions as to how we're going to address them. And I don't like talking about how hard we work, because that's what you expect from us. And but it is disheartening, can't deny that, when you use those words about corruption and that we're not listening. So, but we'll take that on. We'll take that on. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember Hairston. I'm going to
Council President, can I just say 30 seconds?
Yeah.
I just want to say, everybody thanks us for our time, and everybody up here works very hard. And I would like to recognize everybody who came tonight. I'm sorry that so many people left, but we should thank you for coming again and again, for taking interest. And thank you for taking time away from your kids and your family. It is difficult, as everyone also does up here. There's a lot of volunteers in this town, and it's ironic that I'm hearing all the thunder, because the last time we had a big discussion, there was a big thunderstorm. And so we all recognize that you are coming out in under difficult circumstances, and we should work very hard to get this right. So I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out tonight, because you don't get enough thanks. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. I'm going to ask City Administrator Rogers to talk a little more about the finances. There was a question about, there were a few questions. One was Mr. Bennett was talking about the cost per capita issue, and I think that could be addressed. Also, how we would be spending the $8 million and how that fits with the firehouse. And the other question was also just if you could just go over the finances in general, if you want to add to what Councilmember Vartan said.
So,
Anything
Council
else
President,
you want?
sure. I will address it in a general sense around what to expect. So, the city hired a financial advisor to help us through this redevelopment process, analyze the developer's pro forma to help us understand the right balance with a lot of different variables that go into this equation, to come to numbers. Certainly finances play a large role, but that's not the only piece of it. There's been many reasons why we set out to do this, and it goes back to the master plan process in 2016. But as far as what to expect, our financial advisor will produce a final report, and it will address municipal service costs. I think it will address it in some way that has been discussed or has been brought up by Mr. Bennett to some extent, but I think there's, as I've stated before, I think there's some points about that average per capita cost, looking at it purely, is a methodology, but it's not one that practically actually plays out. I think that it will be addressed in the financial advisor's financial report to us, the city, that will be available to the public to view. So I'll leave it at that. I will just say that we will address the municipal service cost part of it. I don't think that at the time Dr. Powell got into the cost, so I think that that's why it's been brought up. We were focusing on revenue. That at the time, that's what we were wanted to present to the community, just to inform the community about it. But that part of it will be addressed. As far as just, I think we've put it out to the public around what we expect to get out of the value of this property. That's $8 million. That, at this time, is still the number. We've talked about a pilot at 10% of annual gross revenues. At this time, that's still the number. There's information on our website. There was a long presentation on that. You will see that again come up when we do have our special meetings. I'm just trying to think of some of the other points. I think Councilman Vartan spoke to some of the sort of the fiscal budgetary issues that we are facing. I think there's a lot of information about that, about some of the challenges we face. This is one part of it. I don't just look at one piece in this town. I think there's a lot of things going on in this town that we try to factor in to understand the fiscal health of this community. That's one piece of it. It's certainly right now, when you look at what we get out of that property, it doesn't yield anything. And we own a piece of property there that is was for private use, so those tenants were sharing in the costs of what we were paying, and you still have to pay taxes on the land, because it is, even though we own it, we still have private tenants in there and for commercial purposes. You're not yielding anything out of that. So, and the other properties are municipally owned, tax exempt. So it's one of these where we've thrown a lot of numbers out there. There's a lot of estimations. There's been a lot of debate around whether the financials, the financial deal is the best deal possible. That's debatable, and I think that we will present what the financial advisor and this council and other steering committee members that are not on the council have looked at. It has not been just one person. We sought professional help. Dr. Powell's credentials are out there, what he's done. He understands both the public and private side. He has extensive experience there. We have other legal professionals who have advised us, and planners who have advised us, who have worked on many, many, many redevelopment projects. I'm always open to hearing input from the community. There are a lot of really smart people in this community, and we recognize that. And I understand what people are saying about what they want to help in this deal. We have all the information, and I know it's a frustrating experience when you don't have every piece of information, so you start to question it. But we have looked at these numbers every which way about the variable, and yes, there are compromises. Is it absolutely 100% the best deal? It is always debatable whether it will be the best deal possible, but there are so many variables that go into this and how we negotiate this process. It is a negotiation. Let's keep that in mind. The $8 million, as I've stated before in previous council meetings, it would be $8 million the city would get in that land deal. You can use that revenue however you feel fit. Future councils will decide in their budgetary years how they want to use that as a revenue source to offset costs. One way to look at it is it can pay for half of the firehouse. That's one way to look at it. Those funds will go into a reserve. We can use it for debt service. I've stated publicly many times, I absolutely would recommend that happen like we have handled other municipal asset sales. Put those monies, there were debt taken out on that in the past. Use it to offset that. It's a cost on the one side of the budget. That $8 million will be your revenue on the other side to offset, and you can do that over how many years it will last, and it should last for many years. I'm not sure if there's anything else I missed.
How much would we raise without a pilot?
Oh, there was that question about how much we would raise if we did a project without a pilot. She was asking for 72 units. I don't know that Bob Powell has
We
run
haven't
those
done that
numbers.
analysis.
But we do have an analysis of what it would be if we did the pilot, if we didn't do the pilot and if this project for some reason got built, which would be
So if you
very
were looking
unlikely.
at this exact project, so
without a
to
pilot.
have an apples-to-apples comparison, if you were looking at this project, what the land value and improvement value would be in an ad valorem tax situation, the delta on that between what you would get in what we have right now of receiving net of the RAD pilot, net of land taxes that have to be paid, those we still are looking at like I think it's about 8, and I'm just going based on my recollection. I'm sorry, I'm doing public math here, but it's probably about 8.7 million. Please don't quote me on that. I'm just trying to come up with a number, but it is a substantial difference in what you would receive from the land value or for that project ordinary tax situation vis-a-vis what the pilots are estimated to yield over 30 years. That's the comparison we've done.
And the land acquisition price would be.
And that's the additional. So
Right.
there's that upfront, and then there's the
Right.
residual revenue gain from that.
And I believe Dr. Powell said something in the range of about 2 to 2.5 million.
Well, that was just if you were.
If you were
I
just
think
gonna
that
sell it.
question was raised about whether if you sold it and just for the zoning, not the plan, but the zoning.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, and that's just sort of a general look, but anybody looking at that land will understand there's so many underground factors, and that's what's playing into this. There's just things that are there pre-existing that is a great unknown, will cost millions of dollars to remedy, and somebody who was just going to buy that land, doing their due diligence, would factor that into what they would be willing to pay for the land.
Okay.
Council
Thank you.
President, can I add
Yes.
that there was a question about the schools as well? Right, so the per capita cost allocation method is not an accurate way to calculate municipal costs, nor is it education costs. So there are, just as a reminder, 200 fewer students in the schools than 10 years ago, which was the peak number of students in the schools. So even if the experts are wrong, right, even if the experts are wrong and we have, let's say, double the number of students that we're expecting, if we have roughly 50 students in the school district, added to the school district, then we are still not anywhere near the maximum capacity of students that we experienced 10 years ago. And I think for this, we've had conversations with the Board of Education members directly about whether any piece of that $37 million bond ordinance that they've been discussing includes expansion of facilities. It does not. They have a demographic study that's done, and they can be asked directly about whether they believe, in their estimation, whether they think the Broad Street project would have the kind of substantial addition of students that would warrant expansion of facilities. And so far, they have not made that assumption. So I just wanted to add that as well. This council values the public schools and the excellent education that they provide for students. I'm a product and a beneficiary of that school system. There will be negotiated a fair financial agreement with the school district for the number of students that are there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
The one thing I would like you to clarify that I think is very confusing is the difference between the amendments that we're going to be hearing you said on the 21st
of June.
Of June, and that is how we're able to get information to the planning board, who will have their deliberation.
Yes, I can explain that process if you
That
want.
would be very helpful, because I think there is a big missing link that why we, because I hear the competing comment is pause, but we need to get the documents to the planning board so that they can weigh in, and then there is another set of deliberations that we have to have. At least that's what I thought I was understanding, and I wish we could clarify that.
I will do that right now. Thank you, Councilmember Hurston. So the process is first the council introduces an ordinance, so, and that ordinance will concern the amendments to the redevelopment plan to make it conform to the project. And after that happens, we'll also include with that a presentation from our planner explaining the plan. And after that, it will go to the planning board, to their regularly scheduled meeting, which is June 27th. They will do what's called a consistency determination, where they will look at the plan and make a determination about whether or not it's consistent with the master plan. And they will, and it's a public process with an opportunity for comment. And then after that's done, after they make their consistency determination, they will send it back to us. And then we will have a hearing, and we will then vote on it. So that's how that process works. In answer to Mr. Nelson's question about changing a redevelopment plan, a change to a redevelopment plan is a very, very common occurrence. In talking to our attorney, they said they basically, every redevelopment project they've worked on, there are changes, there are amendments to the redevelopment plan, because when you put together a redevelopment plan, and I'm making a distinction here, there's the master plan and there's the redevelopment plan. People seem to be mixing the two of them up. The master plan consistency determination is going to make sure that the redevelopment plan is consistent with the master plan. The redevelopment plan is something that was created by council. It's, in a sense, a different form of zoning.
Framework.
Yeah, it's a different way of looking at zoning. In redevelopment, the underlying zoning doesn't apply anymore. We've created a different zoning process. And it's very common that when you start the process, you sit down with the developer, you start talking through the different options, how to solve different issues, and things change. I like to think of it sort of the way, when you plan a renovation, you might sort of start with an architect and you think you're doing X, and then you end up kind of doing something different because you come up with better solutions or more cost-effective solutions, or other things like that. So in the process, the other thing that happened in the intervening 3 years since we developed the redevelopment plan was the pandemic hit. So there were changes to what made sense. I mean, we were talking about maybe we should have a movie theater. And I think, that the economics of a movie theater have really changed. With post-pandemic, it's changed. We've had a lot of conversations with the redevelopers about, does it make sense to have more housing that has like a den because people are working at home? There are a lot of different things that go into making these decisions, and businesses that we thought might be really good retail possibilities post-pandemic, maybe not so much. So there are changes that happen, and this is very natural and very normal, and there is a public process by which this takes place. The redevelopment plan was adopted in the same way that we are going to be amending it. So it's a completely public, transparent process with input from the community, with input from the planning board. So it's not something magical. And by the way, council actually is, and the planning board are the ones who also do this, write the zoning ordinance. So it's, people have imbued this with this magical, what the redevelopment plan is. It's a working document that will be amended to conform with the plan. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Nelson.
Can I add to that?
Sure, go ahead.
The document is 3 years old. It was adopted in 2019. So 4 of us here on the dais were there when it was written and adopted by council. Being one of those 4 people, I definitely have to push back on the idea that we're disrespecting the wishes of the people who created it, because most of us were here. So amendments to the redevelopment plan, like you said, happen all the time. It is simply inconceivable that we, or anyone else for that matter, could have thought of everything that might have come up in between when the plan was passed and where we are in the process now. So I just think it's important to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So did you have?
Sure.
And then I can go through all the other loose ends at the end.
Sure, okay. Well, I
I've
won't
got a
be-
list of loose ends.
Okay, I'll be short. I am short. Anyway, I won't repeat some of the reasons in terms, I'm answering the why. And obviously, Councilman Vartan and City Administrator Rogers have gone over the financial piece and the affordable housing. Those are facts, and so that's the reason. But one of the original drivers of this was the master plan revision that we did in 2017. And the reason we did that is because it's required by state law under the municipal land use law to do that every 10 years. There were hundreds of people that were at the Elks Lodge, and then it's at St. Teresa's at Memorial Hall with pictures and stickies and all this stuff. What do you want? And we did surveys and we did all kinds of stuff. I know some of you in the room remember that. There were signs up around town, text such and such with what do you think should be here. And the single biggest thing that people wanted in the community who responded to the surveys and the community outreach was more residential walk to town, whether it be for a young individual, a person. I have a 27-year-old who would love to be able to live in a studio apartment where she didn't need a car because she Ubers wherever she goes. She takes the train, walks. So that was one reason. It was also my age group. There are a bunch of people that have sold their homes, would love to stay in Summit, and have moved out of town because there's not enough housing stock. I was speaking to realtors recently, and they're referring to the renters market as a bidding war. So we have bidding wars for, purchasing homes, but apparently there's a rental market and a bidding war. That 125 Summit Avenue, the Beacon, there was a waiting list before it was even finished construction for people who wanted to rent in that building. So that's one of the driving forces. That's one of the whys. People want to live in this town. They love being able to walk to town to shop. And I'm sorry, unfortunately, folks were laughed at Councilwoman Little, but when she was talking about it'll be good for the downtown, that she meant foot traffic, not that it brings in a lot of extra cars. This is not meant to have a lot of extra cars. That's why it's one parking space for each unit in the building. Secondly, I think pretty much everyone who spoke tonight, for the most part, said that they want some kind of form of redevelopment there. They just want it smaller. And, okay, I understand that, but we are addressing that. I don't know if it's going to be addressed to the extent everyone wants. I don't know. But I do know that to kind of amend what Councilwoman Little said a little bit, and forgive me, Beth, but I know that the three individuals who ran for election in the fall said they wanted some kind of redevelopment, but didn't want anything quite so big. So I just wanted to clarify that. Unfortunately, I wish the folks who left were still here to hear this, but that's okay. And then lastly, I have said, Councilwoman Fox has said, we've said multiple times that we're not going to vote on anything until we have the parking issue satisfied. And we're not getting into all the details tonight, but I please would hope that people believe me when I can tell you for sure and honestly that the 59 spots of the Chestnut Street lot are being replaced within walking right around that area. So I don't want to get into details, but and I guess that's kind of one of my little frustrations about this whole thing is we'll say things like that the parking will be fixed, the parking, we will not vote until we have adequate parking, and then people will say, well, it has no parking, we just don't believe you. Or we'll say, we have two demographers who have talked about how many students will be at the schools. Well, I think that's low, I don't believe you. I mean, I honestly and truly, I don't know what to do with that, because we're really doing everything we can to get the right information, to get the facts to people. And we are listening and hearing because we are making changes, and we have made changes. So I just appreciate it. I realized, I said when I first gave my opening report that it's nice to see so many people in the audience, and I appreciate your coming out. It's just a lot, and we need to work together to get to the best thing that we can. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Does anyone else have anything they want to add? Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the very specific questions. There were a few comments about lack of green technology and solar. There actually is going to be solar, and There's going to be a solar array on the roof, and there'll be more details about that with the plan. There are also other environmental things that are going to be done. They're going to be planting native plants, a lot of the green swales, and that are going to deal with the stormwater. There are going to be energy efficiency measures taken. So there's a lot of stuff that they're doing that is good for the environment. There were concerns about sewer capacity, and I think we've talked at many meetings that there is adequate capacity. And as far as the cost of sewers, they will be paying, each unit pays the same fee that each house in Summit pays. I believe it's about $315. Is that correct, Director Schrager? Correct. So they will be paying that connection fee plus the $315 sewer fee every year, the same way every other household does. They're not getting any kind of special deal on that. So there are things that you may not have seen. I don't know where you put something like that on the city's website, but there's a lot of this kind of information. We have thought of these things. We have addressed them. Let's see. The parking, we will be, as Mayor Reyes said, we will be presenting parking plan to replace the spots in the Chestnut Street lot. There was also a discussion of, Ms. Staunton talked about the 104 spots in the library and Y lot. I'm not positive. I had seen a different number, which is 99, but nonetheless, we are not taking away any spots for handicapped residents who need those for the Y and the library. There is, we will talk more, and we will give some narrative information about sub-districts 1 and 2, but there is no plan to take away parking for handicapped users or for residents with small children. We thought of all those things. We know and we share the concerns about the people who use the library and the Y. And I want to also just make sure people understand that that is not where all the parking will be located under the plans we're discussing. That goes behind the post office. The area between the library and the Y, there will be enough parking to replace what is lost there to be made available to the public. So stay tuned for more information on this. But but there's a lot of scaremongering going on right now about a giant parking lot being built between sub-districts 1 and 2, between the library and the Y, and that is not what we're proposing, and that's not what's going to be discussed. And I just want to reassure people of that. And there were also comments that I received, an email I received asking, were we going to tear down the library and the Y? And the answer is absolutely not. We've been, the redevelopers and us have been working with the library and the Y to accommodate the kinds of improvements that they want to see to their properties. The redeveloper has been meeting regularly with the library board to talk about improvements that could be made to the library and things that could be done to do the work that they want to do to improve the library. So this is a cooperative venture on that front. So I just want to reassure people about that. We care about all these institutions. We are regular users of these institutions. I and all my colleagues use these places, and we care, we are involved in many ways in a lot of these institutions. We're not going to do anything to harm them. I just want to reassure people on that. There was also, let's see, Beth Welsh had asked about whether we could switch to redevelopers if we were unhappy at some point. This is a conditional designation. So that means that we have designated the redeveloper, and we're only negotiating with that one developer. But if we built Sub-District 3 and we weren't happy with how that went, we would be free to walk away and engage another redeveloper. That's allowed under the redevelopment laws. And, so I appreciate her suggestion, but it is something that has been addressed. The other thing is that the redevelopment agreement will contain protections to make sure that all of the commitments that are made are actually carried out. So, we are writing this in a way that will address all of those concerns. And Ms. Gagnon talked about the concern about Maple Street and all the different things going on. We will, as we consider whether or not to close Maple Street, we will consider how that fits in with Broad Street West. We're not looking at these things in a vacuum, but for this year, Broad Street West, the earliest it would start construction would be the spring of 2023, and that would be really optimistic, because that's probably when the firehouse would be finishing. So I think we're talking summer or fall at the earliest. So we would, we would be thinking about all of these things as a whole. We would not be making decisions to close Maple Street at the same time that we're doing construction on Broad Street West if it affected the traffic. And so I want to reassure people that we are not taking those issues in a vacuum. I'm just looking to see if there was anything else that was asked. I think I got it all.
Council President, can we
Yes.
also use this opportunity to encourage everyone to sign up online for notifications through the city?
Go ahead.
You can
Take it
go
away.
to the city website, there's a notification section, you click on it, you can sign up for texts or emails or both based on the topics that you are interested in. Broad Street West is one of them, parking is another, community programs is another, there's police alerts, there's a million different things, probably 50 different things that you could sign up for, and I would encourage people to go and do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council President?
Yes.
Related to that, we were told about the new electronic volunteer form that is available, and I was writing down people's professions as they were talking. We'd love for them to bring their skills to the committees that run this city, and that's something that is new and improved and available and would help improve the Broad Street West project.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Harrison. I don't think I have, I think I covered everything, did I, unless anyone missed something.
one more.
Oh, we got one more question?
I will
Okay.
paraphrase and kind of.
That looks long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Linda Wilbur, who lives at Oak Lawn Road in Summit, just shared her concerns about the downtown and the parking and the traffic, the increasingly worsening traffic situation in the downtown. And she just expressed her difficulty in just simply going on Union Place and not finding a parking space. She talks about the construction trucks at the corner of Beechwood and Union, and at one point, Beechwood was roped off for whatever work they were doing there, and so it caused more of a traffic jam. And she expresses her frustration with the fact that all of this is happening and the city is has temporarily shut down Maple Street in addition to all of this, which she feels, in her opinion, just adds to the chaos in the downtown. So she questions, with all this going on, why was the decision to shut down Maple Street again made this year? That's her bottom line.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Director Schrager, would you mind just addressing what was going on at Beechwood today, please, just for the folks at home who are curious?
Certainly, through you, Council President. A few years ago, and I can't remember when, thanks to the pandemic, but they lost power downtown when the vault outside the office flooded. So what that is, it's just natural groundwater that would seep in, but it would build up over time. So JCP&L did put in for permits shortly after to add sump pumps to those vaults to prevent that from happening. Those sump pumps connect to our storm source system. Even though they got the permits several years ago, I just kind of assumed the work had been done. They did show up without notice, but it obviously notified police. So they were in very quickly today and will finish up tomorrow. So that should be a very necessary project to keep electricity downtown, unlike when we lost it a few years ago. But it did create an unexpected inconvenience as a result. So.
Thank you. And that's because the power is underground, and
Correct.
so it's the vaults where the power
Yes, that's
lines
essentially
are.
like the transformers down there, and that was what flooded and shorted out downtown, whenever that was.
Right.
So.
Thank you. Okay. So I think, and I think we've explained what our rationale was on Maple Street, but we will be, SDI is doing their survey, we'll be looking at it and looking at the results that they provide to us to consider what to do in the future. But we've gotten a lot of really positive, I know that the last meeting, there were a lot of people who were very negative about Maple Street, but we've also gotten a lot of very positive feedback about Maple Street. And so, you know, on balance, that was a decision that was made, and, you know, we will revisit it next year. I think that covers that. So with that, I guess Councilmember O'Sullivan wanted to say something.
Thank you, Council President. I just had a couple of things. I don't think we can push back hard enough against corruption charges. It makes me sick to be accused of any kind of wrongdoing like that. It's one thing to read it on Facebook, but it's a whole other level that people stoop to when they bring that crap into this chamber. And I believe, and I don't know, it's hard to hear from where I'm sitting tonight, but it sounded like the room clapped for the person that made those accusations. I think it's just terrible. And it's time, if you're going to make those accusations in public, it's time to put up or shut up. I'm tired of it. Excuse me. And then as far as like some of the other things, as far as this building not being within the character of Summit, what is the character of Summit? I used to run a great deal. I've run nearly every road in this town. I don't know what the character of Summit is. Each area has its own unique feeling. Each street has its own identity. The character of Summit is its diversity. And this area right now, it's really ugly. And it really makes me sad when I'm by there. I just think of the possibilities and the opportunity that's in front of us. And the pushback is really disheartening, because this building is going to be beautiful, and it's going to enhance, it's just going to enhance what we already have in Summit. And it's going to contribute to the diversity of housing options that we already enjoy. And then one last point, because people keep bringing up traffic, and I'm one, my family and I, we live very close to town, so we try never to bring our car into town, because people are right. We do live in a congested town, but I think we all knew that when we moved here, right? New Jersey is the most congested state in the nation. So, and we live in one of the most congested counties within the state. So whoever thought they were moving to Summit and they weren't going to deal with traffic, well, I don't know what they were looking at. But these folks that move into this building, they're going to realize where they're living, and they're never going to get in their car to go to Fiorino's or to the Summit Diner or to any coffee place, because they're going to be able to walk. They're going to fall out of bed and they're going to be at a coffee shop. Why would they get in their car? They're not going to contribute to the traffic problem. They're going to contribute to pedestrians walking to town and buying more things and shopping. That's what they're going to do. So, those are some of the reasons some of the things I wanted to talk about. And that's all I have for now. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Sullivan. All right, so no one else has anything on that. We are going to close the public comment period.
Can we do like a
5 minutes, seventh inning stretch?
Yes, please.
Not even seventh inning, third inning. Thank you for correcting me.
I was thinking about all I have to say about these, and I was like, no.
So now it's 10:30, and we're going to start the main agenda. So I believe we've got some ordinances for hearing.
Yes.
Madam Clerk, could you please read the first ordinance?
Yes, ordinance number 22-3256, an ordinance to establish the 2022 salaries, wages, or compensations of and for the officers and employees of the City of Summit, County of Union, New Jersey.
Okay, Councilmember Barton.
Thank you, Council President. This ordinance establishes the salaries, wages, and compensation of and for the employees of the City of Summit for 2022. This is for union and non-union employees, and this salary ordinance is introduced annually after the adoption of the municipal budget. And again, I won't take it personally that no one wanted to stay for this ordinance's hearing. As long as it gets laughs, I'll keep making the joke. I move to open the hearing on this ordinance.
I second it.
Okay, are there any comments? Oh, no, we're in, wait, hearing, yes, so I'm going to open the hearing. Right, I forgot what we were doing. Okay, are there any comments from members of council? Okay, and there are no members of the public anymore, so I guess we can close the hearing. Yep, and now we'll move on to the second finance ordinance.
Ordinance number 22-3257, bond ordinance appropriating $2,170,000 and authorizing issuance of $2,066,000 bonds or notes of the city for various improvements or purposes authorized to be undertaken by the City of Summit, County of Union, New Jersey.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. This is a bond ordinance to appropriate $2,170,000 and authorize the issuance of bonds in the amount of $2,066,000. In opening the hearing on this ordinance, I will briefly remind people about the capital improvement process and then about these projects that will be funded and how they fit into the bigger picture. So a reminder of the process, quoting former council members, the community gets several bites at the apple when it comes to capital projects. I count 4. First, every year in December, we have the capital budget workshop. This is when department heads come before council and the public with the list of projects and equipment they believe we need over the next 5 to 6 years. Second, we have the budget hearings that took place last month. Third, we introduce and have the hearing on the bond ordinance, which is happening right now. And then fourth, we actually award the bid for work to begin, which usually then takes place the following year. So when discussed at the capital budget workshop in December of last year, $5.5 million in projects and equipment were requested. And over the next 6 years, more than $30 million in additional projects and equipment are being requested. Most of these things have merit, and that number is not inclusive of all the things that are likely to be needed in that amount of time. But at the same time, municipal debt service payments for past capital projects has become, as I said before, the 3rd largest line item in our operating budget. Our debt service payments will continue to grow, passing the $6 million mark next year and growing consistently every year until 2027 at the earliest. If we fund the whole capital improvement plan, our annual debt service payments will increase even more, passing $7 million per year by 2026. I'm talking about this in the context of this hearing because it's our responsibility to balance investing in the future and maintaining our infrastructure while simultaneously controlling our debt and minimizing tax increases. The municipal portion of the levy can only go up 2% annually, and increased debt from the year before competes with funding for other things in our operating budget that maintain our ability to deliver high-quality municipal government services. So, difficult and disciplined decisions were made about which of the projects and equipment could be postponed and which absolutely could not wait. And that is part of the story of how we arrived at the smallest capital budget in at least 16 years. Some of what is being funded in this year's capital budget plan is a reflection of our values. 100% of the requests from our police and fire departments, including vehicles, equipment, turnout gear, hoses, and rescue equipment. Improvements to City Hall, including council chambers, AV equipment. Improvements to Maybe Playground, improvement of the stormwater drainage system. Milling, paving, and pedestrian safety improvements to various roads, including Division Ave, Oak Ridge Ave, and others. And open space management, including pedestrian improvements on the Village Green. So with that, I move to open the hearing on this ordinance.
I second.
Okay, hearing's open. Does anyone have any comments? Councilmember Vartan covered it pretty thoroughly, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Madam
All right,
President.
so I'm going to close the hearing, and we will move on to finance number 3.
Number 22-3258, bond ordinance appropriating $2,170,000 and authorizing issuance of $2,170,000 bonds or notes of the city for various sewer utility improvements or purposes authorized to be undertaken by the City of Summit, County of Union, New Jersey.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. Shorter this time. This is a bond ordinance appropriating and authorizing the issuance of $2,170,000 bonds for various sewer utility improvements. Because the sewer is a utility, it has a separate operating and capital improvement budget. The improvements and equipment being funded include utility trucks, renovations to the headquarters at 41 Chatham Road, and inspection of sewers at various locations around the city. I move to open the hearing on this ordinance.
I second it.
Okay, hearing is open. Any comments, members of council? Well, shorter introduction, but equally important. So with that, we'll close the hearing, and we'll move on to the final ordinance for hearing, safety and health.
Ordinance number 22-3259, an ordinance amending Chapter 16 of the Code of the City of Summit to add a new section entitled Key Lock Box Emergency Access System, requiring the installation of a key lock box emergency access system for use by the City of Summit Fire Department during an emergency or any other action deemed necessary by the City of Summit Fire Department.
Councilmember Little?
Thank you, Council President. I'm hoping someone can help me with the procedure here. With this ordinance that was introduced at our last meeting, as I explained, it was about the lockbox requirements for the fire department. Subsequently, we realized that one of the consequences for not complying with the ordinance was for the city to hold up the issuance of a CO for those businesses that did not comply. And we realized that that was not enforceable. So we have removed that section from the ordinance. I believe we are going to table the current ordinance, and then I'm going to reintroduce the same ordinance but without the CO language in it. Is that correct, City Clerk?
Yes, that is correct, Councilwoman. You just have to make a motion to table it and just get a second, and then we'll table the ordinance and move on. We don't have to have the hearing necessarily because it's a moot point.
I believe I'm reintroducing it so that we don't have a hearing at the next meeting. Is that correct?
Let's close out the hearing portion of the
Okay.
agenda,
So
and then
I'm
we'll...
gonna make a motion to table the ordinance that was introduced at the last meeting, safety and health ordinance 22-3259.
I second.
Okay, so do
table
we have
that.
to vote? Or,
Now we're
we'll vote
gonna,
and
let's finish
yeah.
doing the final consideration.
Okay, all right, so we're now moving on to ordinances for final consideration. Madam Clerk, could you please read the first title?
Ordinance 22-3256, an ordinance to establish the 2022 salaries, wages, or compensations of and for the officers and employees of the City of Summit, County of Union, New Jersey.
Councilmember Barton.
Thank you, Council President. This is the annual salary ordinance. As we just held a hearing on this ordinance, I move to adopt it.
I second it.
Okay, a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little?
Aye.
Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Bartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Moving on to finance number 2, please.
Number 22-3257, bond ordinance appropriating $2,170,000 and authorizing issuance of $2,066,000 bonds or notes of the city for various improvements or purposes authorized to be undertaken by the City of Summit, County of Union, New Jersey.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Barton.
Thank you, Council President. This is the bond ordinance for various capital improvement projects. As we just held a hearing on this ordinance, I move to adopt it.
I second.
Okay, a roll call, please.
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little?
Aye.
Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Bartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Aye. Okay, so that one motion carries. We're moving on to finance number 3.
Ordinance 22-3258, bond ordinance appropriating $2,170,000 and authorizing issuance of $2,170,000 bonds or notes of the city for various sewer utility improvements or purposes authorized to be undertaken by the City of Summit, County of Union, New Jersey.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Barton.
Thank you, Council President. This is the bond ordinance for sewer utility improvements. As we just held a hearing on this ordinance, I move to adopt it.
I second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little?
Aye.
Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Aye, okay, so the motion carries. We have one last one, which is, we're not going to.
We don't take a vote on that.
Oh, you don't have to vote on the tabling?
No, it's tabled. We
Okay.
just go to next section.
Okay, great. So now we have an ordinance for introduction. Madam Clerk, could you please read that ordinance?
ID number 9678, an ordinance amending Chapter 16 of the Code of the City of Summit to add a new section entitled Key Lock Box Emergency Access System, requiring the installation of a key lock box emergency access system for use by the City of Summit Fire Department during an emergency or any other action deemed necessary by the Summit Fire Department.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Little, would you like to introduce this ordinance?
Thank you, Council President. As you just discussed, I am reintroducing this ordinance, which is in all respects the same as the ordinance introduced at the last meeting, except that it removes one of the consequences for not complying with the ordinance, which was the holdup of the CO. So now there are just monetary fines as a consequence for not complying with the ordinance. This will have each business in town that falls under the ordinance will be required to install a lock box on the business, which will allow the fire department access in case of an emergency, which will increase the response time so that the fire department can respond adequately to any issues and improve the response times in the lack of time that the amount of time that the fire department is responding to these types of incidents. So I ask that we approve this for introduction.
I second.
Okay, roll call, Madam Clerk?
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little?
Aye.
Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Aye. Okay, motion carries, and the hearing will be on the 15th of June,
Which is a Wednesday.
which is also a Wednesday, yes. It's a thing. Okay, so now we're moving on to resolutions. We've got two finance resolutions. Councilmember Vartan?
Yes, thank you, Council President. The first is number 9672. This resolution authorizes the salaries for employees of the City of Summit effective January 1st, 2022. This resolution is for all those non-union employees who have maxed out their step increases and are therefore receiving a cost of living adjustment. This modest increase in salaries is in line with the 2022 municipal operating budget. I thank our dedicated city staff for all they continue to do for this city, and I move to adopt this resolution.
I second it.
Okay, any comments from members of council? No, okay. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to finance number 2. Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. This is number 9673, and it's similar. This resolution authorizes the 2022 salaries for city staff who are due step increases as of July 1st, 2022. This resolution can only be adopted after the adoption of the municipal budget, and as that is completed, I move to adopt this resolution.
I second.
Okay, are there any comments from members of council? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we're now moving on to law and labor. Councilmember Hairston.
Thank you, Council President. I'm introducing Resolution ID 9658, which renews liquor license for the period 2022 to 2023 for Nipa Liquor and Deli on Beechwood, also known as Beechwood Wine and Liquors, Cambridge Wine Cellar LLC, JK Wine Inc., which is King's Fine Wines and Spirits, Simona Wine and Liquor LLC, Nimish Corporation, which is on Morris Avenue Liquors Inc., and Summit Avenue Liquors Corporation, which is Best Sellers. These retail licenses came with an annual fee of $1,980. The next type of liquor license that is up for approval is a club license, and that is for the Beacon Hill Club with an annual fee of $180. And the next type is a retail consumption license with an annual fee of $2,400, and those two premises are the Villa Dasty, which is the Broadway Diner, and Harvest Associates, which is on Huntley Tavern. And so I ask that we pass this resolution to renew these liquor licenses.
I second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we now are moving on to law and labor number 2. And Madam
you.
Clerk, do you want to just address the issue
So,
here?
before we take a vote on the next resolution, anyone who is a member of the Elks Club really has to abstain from it, from voting on this resolution. If we have enough abstentions, and the Assistant Counsel can explain this, if you can clarify, it would go to the state at that point.
Correct.
And then the state would do the approval instead of the council, because we don't have enough votes.
That's right.
So, once this is approved, I would send this down to the state, and then they would send the renewal. They would do the renewal process at that point.
That's right, because we're conflicted here, so the state would have to do it.
Okay.
So,
All right, so-
anyone who needs to abstain needs to publicly just advise of that.
So
that
I'll
they
call
can-
for abstentions, and
Right.
people will just say abstain.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead,
motion.
Councilmember Hairston. I was just
Thank
explaining
you.
the...
No, thank you, Council President. Thank you, Clerk Licatis, for that clarification. Introducing Resolution 9707, which is to renew the liquor license for the Elks Club, but not to have this council do it, but to have authorization to send it to Trenton. So I introduce that resolution.
And I second.
Okay, so at this point, are there any comments from members of council?
I think we should go with a
Roll call vote, that's a good idea, yes.
Okay.
But we have to abstain, right?
If you're a member, you abstain. Yeah,
Or
okay.
applied, correct?
If
Or
you
if you're
apply,
pending.
if you're
Yeah.
pending, you abstain, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
All
go
right,
ahead. roll call,
Ms.
please.
Allen?
Abstain?
Ms. Hairston?
You could just say
Aye.
aye.
Ms. Little?
Aye.
Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Abstain.
Mr. Vartan?
Abstain.
President Fox?
Abstain. That gives us,
Okay, with that,
we've got three,
have 4
three aye
abstentions.
and 4 abstentions, so that's, it has to go to the state.
it has to go to the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the final law and labor resolution, which, Councilmember Hairston?
Thank you, Council President. Introducing Resolution ID 9680, which authorizes the execution of employee agreements for 2 key positions within the city, and sets forth the terms of the agreement. Council President, I'm allowed to say which positions those are?
Yeah, I believe so. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, please repeat?
She wants to know, did she say who the positions are? The answer is
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
For our Director of Engineering and for our CFO. These are key staff who not only have done an outstanding job, but this agreement sets forth the terms of the contracts to go through 2023. So I introduce 9680 to approve these agreements.
And I second.
Okay, are there any comments from members of council?
Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you. And, okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so now we're moving on to capital projects and community services. Councilmember O'Sullivan, I have to remember where to look for everyone.
Thank you, Council President. This is ID number 9445, to advertise assessment hearings. The The engineering department has finalized the cost sheet for various older projects that need to be heard and closed out. These projects include sidewalk repairs and Belgian block curving. The list of reports will be considered by council at our next regular meeting on June 15th. I move to adopt this resolution.
A second?
Are there any comments from members of council? So I just had one question. I just wanted to confirm, this is Belgian block and sidewalk repairs, not new sidewalk installations, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so any other comments, questions? No. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and then we have one last, capital projects and community services. Councilmember O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Council President. This is ID number 9516 to award the bid, City of Summit City Cooperative Pricing System, number 192 SCCPS 2022 Micro Surfacing Program, not to exceed $86,915.66. The city received one bid for the annual microsurfacing project through the Summit City Cooperative Pricing System. The winning bidder was Asphalt Paving Systems of Hamilton, New Jersey, and their bid price is $3.53 per square yard. This is a program that the city has used successfully for many years, and it is designed to preserve and increase the longevity of our roads. The application is a top coat wearing service that fills cracks and voids, giving the existing roads a new smooth finish. The list of streets for this project are Midland Terrace, Parkview Terrace, Oak Lawn Road, Colony Drive, both sections of Washington Avenue, Grove Street, Bedford Road, and Aubrey Street. The project should begin in July and be completed by the end of August. I move to adopt this resolution.
A second?
Are there any comments from members of council? Looks like you're thinking about it, Councilmember Barton. Nope, okay. All right, with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and now we're on to the consent agenda. So we'll take this item as a whole unless anyone has anything they want to discuss separately. So do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now on to council members' comments, new business. Anyone have anything they would like to report?
Just very quick, Council President.
go ahead.
Just to say, the fire department, police department, and EMS have been all over the place tonight, doing courageous work during the storm. So just please be safe going home, and thank you for your service tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments from anyone? Councilmember O'Sullivan, is that a hand, or are you just, I can't see, it's probably your chair. Can't tell. My vision is not so good, so I guess you don't have a comment. Okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good night, everyone. Thank you.